It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Man, we have a great panel for you. Mike Elgin's back in studio from the Wall Street Journal, Nathan Oliveris-Giles. And from Taipei, Taiwan, it's Ben Thompson of Stratechery. We're going to talk about Yahoo. What's going on there? Facebook at work. The Twitter sale. What should Twitter do next? And a whole lot more. It's a great twit ahead. Stay tuned.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Twit This Week in Tech, episode 584, recorded Sunday, October 16th, 2016. It's not a fact, but it is trending. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Squarespace. Make your business and online store stand out with the only platform that lets you create, manage, and brand your store in a beautiful way. Use our offer code TWIT to get 10% off. And by Casper, an online retailer of premium mattresses for a fraction of the price, because everyone deserves a great night's sleep. Get $50 off any mattress purchase by visiting casper.com/twit and using the promo code TWIT. And by Eero. Why settle for just a Wi-Fi router when you can have a brilliant, hyper-fast, super simple Wi-Fi system? No more buffering, no more dead zones. Finally, Wi-Fi that works. For free overnight shipping, visit Eero.com and at checkout, select overnight shipping and enter the code TWIT. And by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you fresh, high-quality ingredients to cook delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the week's tech news. And each and every Sunday, it's kind of, for me, and I hope for you too, it's kind of a great moment to get together with people. And I really love the panels that we get together on Twit. And we've got a great one this week. Ben Thompson, who was going to be here last week, slept through the show. But we're thrilled to have you back. Hey, you're
in my defense, there was a miscommunication. I was actually not even in town. I was traveling with my family.
Well, I apologize, but I'm glad we could get you here now. And Ben writes at stratechery.com. He is a great analyst who offers both free and paid writings at that website. Highly recommend it. Everybody knows that Stratechery is a place to go to get the most trenchant analysis of what's going on in the tech community. And you're in Taipei where it's early, right?
It is 6 a.m. So
that's why I assumed you slept. I would not be up at this hour. I assumed you slept through it.
I have never slept through one. So I know.
I'm always amazed.
I was in Singapore actually last week. So I did indeed wake up to a bunch of missed Skype calls, but I actually had no idea. So there was
our fault.
It might have been my fault. I'm not sure whose fault it was, but I apologize for the confusion and whatever role I may have played. But
no.
I'm happy to be here this week.
It worked out great. We had a great show last week, and we're going to have a great show this week. Also with us, good buddy Nathan Oliveris-Giles from the Wall Street Journal.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Can't really explain the LA Dodgers hat to your left. I'm sure it's not yours.
I can explain it to you guys. It's my favorite baseball team.
Yeah. Are you from LA?
I was born in LA, moved to Phoenix when I was little, but I grew up a Dodgers fan.
God, you're not a Cardinal fan.
You mean Arizona Cardinals?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I am.
Oh.
Yeah. I was a Raiders fan, and then the Raiders moved to Oakland, and Bo Jackson stopped playing, and Raiders moved to Oakland. LA didn't have a team anymore, so
you had to become a Cardinals fan.
No other choice. Yeah. And then
now you got the embarrassment of riches. You got the Rams now. You got the Dodgers. You're great.
There's some internal conflict there. I'm excited that LA has a football team again, but they play in the same division as the Cardinals. So I'd like to see the Rams do well. But my favorite team's the Cardinals. So the Diamondbacks came out when I was in high school.
Yeah, the Diamondbacks, them too.
I don't really care for them too much myself. I mean,
Well, congratulations. As much as I hate to say it, I actually was rooting for the Dodgers to win because I thought it'd be great to have a Dodgers-Giants.
That's what I wanted.
Playoff.
NLCS. That would have been great. But the Cubs.
It's exciting to see them too.
You know, they haven't won since 1908. You know, the Dodgers won last in 1988. You guys won in 2014.
I know, we kind of, yeah. That's why we should have won every other
World
year.
Series.
We should. It's our year. Something went wrong there. We got to talk to people upstairs.
But the Dodgers got their butt kicked last night. It was there was that grand slam in the 8th inning, I think it was, or 7th inning. So they're playing right now, actually.
Are they?
Yeah. That's how dedicated I am.
That's amazing.
That's how much I like being on this show.
Let's get a little monitor up for Nathan so he can at least kind of keep up on what's going on. I hear the internet where you can do something with it.
Yeah, I'll get alerts and stuff. But there you go.
Hey, look who else is here. Really thrilled to get Mike Elgin back in studio. I call him the peripatetic Mike Elgin just because I like saying peripatetic.
It's a great word.
Yeah.
You know? and I, too, was born in Los Angeles, as were both of my sons, and I'm a huge fan of not caring about sports.
There you go. Thank God.
Ergo, no hat.
Ergo, no hat. No hat. Well, if I'd known Nathan was going to wear his hat, I'd wear my hat. But anyway, great to have you. You're back home for a little bit, but I know you're going to, because there's a certain grandchild on the way.
Yes.
Kevin and Nadia, or Kevin's here. Nadia's lying on her back.
The Elgins are reproducing.
They're reproducing. There's more of them, so congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great. It's really lovely to have all of you.
Thank you.
And as always, whenever I get you guys in, I'm champing at the bit because there's so much to talk about between Yahoo and Twitter. I guess we should update you on the Note 7. That's been kind of the lead story for the last month.
Hot story.
Well, and now I think
Hot is the word. Hot is the word.
There's a coda to it. I think the whole thing is over now because Samsung, according to the Journal, is permanently discontinuing the Note 7.
There will be no more Note 7s. They gave up on that phone, which I think was the right call, ultimately. They probably should have done it a little bit earlier. But yeah, that phone is discontinued. They made $2.5 million in the initial versions of the phone. Then they recalled those, and they brought out some new ones. I'm not exactly sure how many they brought in the second wave.
But they started burning.
Exactly. And now, so all of them have been recalled, and they're not making them anymore. So if you have a Note 7, please take it back.
Yeah.
Take it back to wherever you bought it from. Every carrier is taking it back. Target, Amazon,
Samsung's
Best Buy,
offering some blandishments. I think $100 if you buy another Samsung phone, trying to keep you in the family.
And $25 if you buy something else.
Right.
So they want you to stay with Samsung, which makes sense for them.
What is your sense? Do you think people are going to abandon Samsung?
I think a lot of people are going to abandon Samsung.
Especially since you got the Apple phone coming out right after this, and you've got the Pixel coming out in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yeah, it sucks because, I've been reviewing Android phones for maybe 7 years now, and the phones from Samsung haven't been any better than they are right now. They're actually really great hardware. They have fantastic cameras. I still have troubles with a lot of Samsung software changes to Android, but they're at the top of their game. And if you want to stick with Samsung, the Galaxy S7 is great, and there are no reports of batteries starting on fire or exploding or having any of these issues. But the Note 7 has these problems, and you got to steer clear of that. So I don't blame a lot of people for giving up on Samsung right now. I think for us, we're in this mode of they have to kind of win back our trust, and we're not necessarily recommending people stick with Samsung, but we're not necessarily telling people to flee them either. It's going to be a personal choice. But whatever you do, don't play around with that Note 7 because you're literally putting yourself and the people around you at risk. And we don't say that lightly. But there's never been a recall of a smartphone.
A recall.
Yeah, there's never been anything like this. And as we know, they're not allowed on U.S. flights anymore.
As of yesterday noon, the Transportation Administration has banned.
Yeah.
Not even if it's off. You cannot bring it on. They'll confiscate it. Actually, I liked the punishment. They also said you're not going to be able to put it in the seat back or above. You have to keep it in your pocket.
Yeah.
Because we want to know when it catches on fire.
Yeah, we hear you screaming.
It's bad news.
You're saying that you're not telling people to get away from Samsung. I am, partly because of there was the famous misdirected email where they intended to communicate internally when a customer complained, and accidentally copy the customer, and there was an intent to be shady.
The replacement phone that caught on fire on Southwest Airlines.
Yeah,
that's right.
They sent an email or a text accidentally to the customer, saying, what do you want us to do about this? Should we sit on it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really shady.
And
really
this is based on a history, and Ben can chime in because a lot of this was from Taiwan. But they were fined more than $250,000 by Taiwan's equivalent of the FTC 3 years ago, for astroturfing online forums, paying fake users to go in there and talk up Samsung. They were fined for lying in Taiwan, for lying in ads about smartphone features. They were caught cheating on benchmark tests multiple times and caught lying about the cheating. So this is a company of questionable integrity, and I think that it's a good idea for people to vote against shady business by not buying Samsung phones. That's my own personal opinion.
I love the New York Times take on this. Brian X. Chen, writing in the New York Times, interviewed a number of people, including a battery expert, Park Chul-won, former director of the Center for Advanced Batteries at the Korea Electronics Technology Institute. He said he didn't think it was the battery. He said Samsung was too quick to blame the batteries. I think there was nothing wrong with them, or that they were not the main problem. He said, and I think that this is the great way to end this article from the New York Times, the problem seems to be far more complex. The Note 7 had more features and was more complex than any other phone manufactured. In a race to surpass iPhone, Samsung seems to have packed it with so much innovation, it became uncontrollable. Well, even they didn't know how it worked.
They flew too close to the sun.
That's such a ridiculous argument to me. I mean, we are pushing these phones, further than they've been before. We're asking more of the batteries and the processors than ever before.
But Samsung could not replicate the problem, and they released a phone with the same problem, thinking it was safe.
Exactly, and I think part of the issue was, and I spoke to some battery experts in some stories I wrote myself, was that the phones start on fire and they destroy a lot of the evidence they would look to figure out what the problem is. So it can literally be the chemistry of the device. It could be basically there's two electrodes inside of each of these batteries. There's a separator between the two because if these two electrodes touch, they will catch fire. The batteries themselves could be contaminated during the manufacturing process. And there are electronics that control how the battery works outside of the battery. And then there could be other issues that prevent the battery from taking a charge and overheating. I mean, there's literally dozens of reasons why this could be the case. But to say that there's too much innovation, it just is. It's like it's a big phone with a stylus. It's not that different than any other.
Yeah, but the Galaxy
S7,
S7, which was functionally a very similar phone,
it's damn near the same thing.
Is not bursting into
This is true.
I mean, if you look at the iPhone, what is it called? The iPhone touch disease problem, where some iPhone 6s and 6 Pluses. It's not that there's too much innovation. I think that everybody's pushing so hard.
That is true.
That everything's turned up to 11, and they're trying to be thin and small and maximum battery life and maximum. And so I think we're going to see a lot more of this kind of thing.
Ben, what's the consequence to Samsung as a company?
Well, I was just going to say, just real quick on the battery point. I think the one important thing to note is that the Samsung, the iPhone 7 Plus, the battery capacity is 2,900 mAh. What is mAh?
Milliamp hours.
Milliamp hours. Thank you. The iPhone or the Samsung Note 6 was 3,000, so just 100 more. Whereas the Note 7 was 3,500, and that, given battery technology, is largely a function of size. And so basically they were putting in a larger battery, significantly larger, 17% or so larger into this phone. And this is really, I think, to me, I'm surprised they haven't said definitively what it is, because when they replaced the first one, the Samsung SDI batteries, where they basically threw their corporate brother under the bus. It was super interesting when that happened, because Samsung SDI is also an Apple supplier, as is ATL. And Apple at the time had this really snarky statement saying, we're very confident in the design of our phones and something to that effect, and that is not going to be a problem here. And basically this Consumer Protection Agency said something to the effect that the battery was too big for the phone. And well, no, that actually makes perfect sense, because to go further on the point of how these batteries are made, they're actually very, very thin layers of the two chemicals with a porous layer in between. And what happens is when they are, and so there's multiple thin layers. And if they are squeezed, that is 100% a way to start a fire with this battery. And so it seems, I'm not a battery expert, but given the comments by the director of the Consumer Protection Agency that he felt the battery was, or that Samsung, I believe, had told him the battery was too big, it would certainly make sense that the replacement battery, which is presumably the same capacity, might also have a similar problem. Again, we don't know for sure, but to me, when you talk about packing in innovation, to me that sounds like literally packing in a battery that's too big to make the phone competitive from a battery standpoint. Again, we don't know for sure what it is. I'm not none of us are battery experts, but that just from a very quantitative aspect, that massive jump in capacity without a similarly massive jump in the size of the phone itself. And, unfortunately with battery technology, we don't have that level of breakthrough. That certainly seems like a possibility as to what's happened. And really, I think makes this much worse for Samsung than it would have been, because initially I was never on the, this will be good for Samsung in the long run phase, because that was,
what was the logic there?
Yeah.
How would this be good for Samsung?
I haven't heard that.
No, there were literally
they
some people, analysts saying that. Right, exactly. And they're showing that they're trustworthy, et cetera, et cetera.
They've blown this on every step of the way. They haven't explained what happened to this date. They've had really terrible communication with their customers. As
no, you're preaching to the choir. You're preaching to the choir, to be sure. I don't think that was
if it had stopped with the replacements. In other words, if they had been able to fix it and replace it, I think it might have possibly redounded well to Samsung's reputation, because they acted quickly and they did the right thing, and everything's good. But then to put out phones that continue to burn, that's it. It's over.
But even then,
to be clear, that was never. It's never a good thing. It's never a good thing in exploding phone. So, but my whole point is that entire.
But Tylenol, for example, survived its recall, although it wasn't Tylenol's fault.
Ford survived the Pinto.
Ford survived the Pinto.
Sony survived a few laptop battery situations.
Will Samsung survive? I mean, why wouldn't?
Yeah, I think Samsung will survive, but
they've got this reputation that's seeping into the popular culture. I was at a coffee shop a couple of days ago, and there was this family, had a couple of kids. They asked me to take their picture, and they handed me a phone, and it was an iPhone.
Yeah.
And before I took possession of it, I'm like, oh, is that an iPhone 7?
Yeah.
And he said, it's the one that doesn't burn. That's the phone.
Oh, and that's probably the level of understanding of normal people.
Yeah, they're going to be a punchline for a very long time.
Just give me the one that doesn't burn.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think so. I think just to continue my point, I think the long-term damage is significant. My whole point from the beginning was to say that this was never a good thing, and anyone who said so was being silly. Just to be clear. But you're right. There have been brands that have survived recalls. Like it does happen. But
Sony, Dell,
the double
Apple
recall,
have all recalled batteries. This is not unheard of.
Well, there's a few interesting things on that point. I mean, the initial recall was bad, and anyone who says it wasn't is confusing themselves. But the double recall is really, I think, it's really significant, and obviously the short-term financial impact is going to be massive, as you would expect. But the long term, I think there's a really big problem with brand perception, and I think it's going to be pretty significant. It's going to be pretty significant not just in the U.S. but also in other countries. I think one area where Samsung really hurt themselves was in China, where they launched the phone in China the same day the recall was announced in the U.S. And they said that it's fine because they use a different battery.
Yep.
And of course, the same day in China. And the China, internet is extremely active and extremely fast in diffusing information, true or not. And there were immediately account reports that there were phones exploding.
Were there fires in China?
There were, and the reason why this was so damaging was they were, I think, in retrospect, pretty arrogant about saying, "Don't worry about it. It's a different phone. It's going to be fine," and dismissing them outright. And really, I think, causing arguably even more damage. I mean, it's bad enough in the U.S. You get on every airplane, they say, "Do you have a Samsung? Turn it off." I mean, that's brand publicity you can't pay money for. Unfortunately, it's going in the wrong direction. But I think the sort of arrogant attitude they took in China in particular is going to be very damaging and have long-term repercussions for their brand, particularly in China, where the big advantage they have in the Western countries is there's not a clear alternative to premium Android. Obviously, in the long run, Google is a huge threat to them, and we'd certainly talk about that more. But in China, the Huawei phones in particular are doing very well at the high end. It's the market with the strongest alternative to a Samsung phone, and I think that's going to be a massive problem for them.
Yeah, where there's competition, where there's a choice, I think consumers probably will just, especially Android phones, which seem like a commoditized product. The Note 7 was unique because it had a stylus. It was a big phone with a small body. I mean, a big screen with a small body.
There's a difference in the short term. Short term, they're going to be hammered, no question, and they're going to feel this for a while. The real damage is the potential long-term impact on their brand and their reputation, and like stuff like this can be hard to recover from. I mean, yes, I get the point those people were driving at that we were making fun of, that it's not going to be that big a deal, is that, yes, if you handle it well, you can establish a certain level of, people will give you a chance and you can establish some level of trust. But they've not only obliterated that opportunity, they've made it 100 times worse by blowing.
And I still won't eat at Jack in the Box.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are brands. Chipotle is still, you know, it's
look at them askance as well. Yeah. And it has to be said that Google's timing with the Pixel could not have been better.
Or Apple. Both Apple and Google came out with premium phones, and I'm sure Samsung was well aware that this was about to happen. That all provided an alternative at exactly the same price. I do want to talk about the Google phone at some point, because the Pixel, as attractive as it is, it costs as much as a Note 7. It's awfully expensive.
I think it's a bit too expensive.
I think it's too expensive. I think this may hurt them.
Yeah. And if you drop it in the toilet, that's it.
It's
not waterproof.
Water resistant. Yeah.
It never bothered me. I don't drop a lot of phones in the toilet, but
you should try it. It's a lot of fun.
The Huawei, is it the Honor 8? Is that the one? That's the one you can get in the U.S. now. Is that the phone that's doing so well in China, Ben?
Yeah, Huawei has had a very hard time in the United States in particular. They kind of pinned their hopes on the Nexus 6P. I think there was a miscommunication about Google's goals with the Nexus line, which I think are
widely treated as a Huawei phone, right?
Yeah, right. Well, actually, Google asked Huawei to make the Pixel as well, but they were not down with the no branding or something.
I didn't know that. That's interesting. So HTC won the contract. You
got it.
Oh, that's interesting.
I mean, because HTC is
they're toast, so they'll do anything.
Yeah, and I think there's the difference between the Nexus, and we can get into this, but the difference between the Nexus and the Pixel, I think, are significantly greater than just a name change.
Yeah, let's save that, because I think that's an interesting conversation.
Definitely.
But I do note that Huawei.
2 months earlier.
Yeah, I do note that Huawei and ZTE, both Chinese manufacturers, have pretty compelling Android devices, which they are for the first time selling into the U.S. The Honor 8 and the Axon 7, which are really pretty nice devices. And I'm just wondering if that maybe is another reason why Samsung should be afeared.
Well, this could be an opportunity.
They're also half the price of the Samsung phones.
Yeah, this could be an opportunity for, the Motorola's, the even Sony, a lot of those companies, if they can deliver the right products at the right time. I think what we've seen that I'm really interested in is this kind of mid-range of Android phones that are maybe like $300, $400, significantally cheaper, but
Axon,
offer
the Honor 8.
They offer high-end like
OnePlus 3.
OnePlus 3, even the Next Bit Robin, I really liked a lot as well. Motorola's been playing that space, and the Nexus line used to play in that space as well, but Google's never really put the marketing effort behind.
I'm going to offer a counter argument. I think this could be the end for not just Samsung, but for Android. Because it comes on the heels of a lot of Android malware, a lot of security concerns. Google's fighting kind of a rear guard action with security, because only the Google phones really are guaranteed to have the monthly security updates. Yeah. There is always going to be a market for Android at the low end. Cheap phones, you don't have a choice, right? Yeah. But at the high end, in the flagship market, I'm wondering if this doesn't give Apple a chance to eat the entire market.
You might be right, but it seems as though a lot of people don't associate Galaxy phones with Android. I mean, you talk to a lot of people.
They're a different brand entirely.
Well, yeah, you talk to a lot of people, and they're like, I have a Galaxy. And you're like, do you have an Android? And they don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Maybe like half the time, I feel like. And, this is anecdotally when I'm talking to folks. I don't know what you guys think, but
Samsung would like you to think that.
It's absolutely true. I mean, Samsung has highly differentiated satisfaction and reliability scores than any of their rivals. And I mean, and this is why this is so damaging, because Samsung was again, I think your point is very well made. That we tend to think of it as iOS versus Android, but the way that the competition actually manifests itself, and the way that most consumers think about it, is Apple versus Samsung.
Well, that's even better.
That's
even better for Apple.
Yeah.
Then
It's better for
they don't have to beat all of Android, just Samsung, and then Samsung's on the ropes.
And it could be better for an Android manufacturer if they make the right kind of device at the right. And you know, we don't know what this looks like, you know.
Yep.
But if there, I think this could be a small opportunity.
Well, let's take a break, and then I want to talk about if this is the Pixel's opportunity to leap into the fray. I'm sure that's what Google's hoping. Yeah. Mike Elgin is here. It's great to have you. Becoming Nomad.
BecomingNomad.com and Elgin.com.
And Elgin.com. How about that Google Plus? You still doing that?
Yeah, I'm doing it. There's still a bit of the community that once existed. There's always a really awesome minority community. It used to be the Well. Remember the Well?
Yeah.
And
these people won't leave.
For a few
In fact, they
years,
hope everybody else will leave.
Right, exactly. But it's getting tough out there, Leo. I
Yeah,
tell you.
I know.
Google Plus is still there. I'm still using it, but it's not what it used to be.
Well, we'll get to it when we talk about Twitter.
Yeah.
And also from the Wall Street Journal, he covers gadgets. I hate to say gadgets.
It's part of what I do.
Devices?
Yeah, consumer tech,
Consumer
gadgets,
tech.
apps, basically anything that regular people use. Lately, a lot of virtual reality stuff.
Oh, good. At the Wall Street Journal. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And Nate OG on the Twitter.
That is me.
Are you an original gangster or an old grandpa? What is that?
Well, it's the initials of my last name. I had an elementary
You're
school
an Oliveras
teacher.
Giles. That's what you are.
I had an elementary school teacher who couldn't say my name.
OG.
So she started calling me OG, and I think I was like 3rd grade, and I don't think she really knew.
She didn't know what it meant.
So you know,
But it's kind of cool.
I went to a pretty rough school, so all my friends thought that
He's
was pretty
OG,
funny.
man.
Yeah, so it stuck.
It's also, I don't want to tell you, but you're all blue today.
Yeah. Well, the Dodgers are playing the Cubs right now.
Okay. Can we get a monitor? Can we get a
Hopefully
monitor
not
for the
losing.
man? We need a monitor.
Playing
for the
Kershaw, my ace is pitching.
I'm watching the Packers game on the side.
Okay.
So I don't mind
Then
watching
if anything
the
happens,
Dodgers game as well.
report in. Ben
Yeah.
Thompson, he's in Taipei.
No, I'm watching football. So
He's watching football. Statechekery.com. I can tell you one thing, I'm not watching the 49ers.
The Cubs are up 1-0 right now. The Niners lost today, but Kaepernick had like a great 50-yard pass or something for a touchdown. Or I'm excited that Kaepernick's starting again. You know, I don't really care for the Niners, but I think it's
That's why you're excited.
A lot lot better than Gabbert was, though, man.
Yeah.
You know, so
hey, we should do a sports show with you. Man, you're like the sports guy.
I could go.
You guys should. The Niners should hire that college coach who's doing really well. What's he at Michigan? I think.
I hear. What is this? Jim Harbaugh.
Nice.
He sounds great, doesn't he?
He would be a good fit.
He sounds really
really put some discipline into that team.
I like to see him and Kaepernick together. They could make it to the Super Bowl, maybe.
Maybe. Wouldn't that be an amazing pairing? All right,
never
everybody's going, what are you talking about, this sport ball thing?
Sports ball.
Our show today brought to you by Squarespace, the place to make your next website, your business, your online store, your blog, your portfolio. Getting married, make a Squarespace site. Having a baby, make a Squarespace site. You will make a beautiful, professional-looking site by using the best engineering, the best designers, to make your page reflect your personal feel, your look. And by the way, if you want to do e-commerce, it's never been easier to sell online. Every Squarespace template has built-in e-commerce. Mobile's built in, too, from responsive design to mobile-optimized checkout. Your website will look great no matter what size screen. And we know these days you can't predict how your visitors are going to come to you. Many of them are on phones. So it's got to look and work well for the mobile shopper. You could sell unlimited products with no transaction fees. All your data and financial information is safe and secure because Squarespace runs the servers and runs the software. That's really Squarespace's secret sauce.
Leo, you mentioned my website, Becoming Nomad. That, of course, is a Squarespace site, and it has to be. And they have this beautiful map so people can track where I am. There's so many little
I love
things it's just plug and play.
It's really deep.
Check it. You just choose it.
LeoLaporte.com is also Squarespace. Yeah. And I find new features all the time. It's kind of cool.
Yep.
You can also manage, if you're running a business on Squarespace, the dashboard lets you manage workflow even, offer fast customer service. They've got order processing. They've got fulfillment help. They've got shipment notifications. Even refunds can be handled through the Squarespace dashboard. So you really got a full service site there for very little money. I really have to say that. I don't know how they offer all this so affordably. The new Squarespace Commerce app Lets you fulfill order. This is on your phone. You could fulfill orders, manage product inventory, resolve customer issues, iOS or Android. It's the only platform I know of that lets you create, manage, and brand your store in a beautiful way, in a way that matches the whole site. It's not the shopping is not an afterthought hanging off the side. It's the whole site. It's there everywhere. They have a basic plan. They have an advanced plan with lots of features for your growing business. And, of course, they'll let you accept payments instantly. You get a free domain with the annual purchase. They sell domains now, too, by the way. Squarespace Domains is awesome. Your site will look great. It will work great. And it never, ever goes down. Squarespace. You could try it right now at squarespace.com. They have a free trial. Just press the Get Started button. All I ask, if you decide to buy, use the offer code TWIT for 10% off. And you'll be showing your support for TWIT. We were I'm pretty sure the first podcast they ever advertised on. Now they're on every podcast known to man because it worked. I mean, we took them from 0 to 60 over the last 6 years, and I'm just very proud of that. So, yeah, you may be tempted to use some other offer code. Please use TWIT. Let them know. Yes, we're still with TWIT. With us,
the offer code.
It is, isn't it, nowadays? Do you have offer codes too, Ben?
I do not.
Oh, good. You have a podcast now, though, don't you?
Yeah, I've had a podcast for several years. So, Exponent.fm.
Love it.
We have a exclusive sponsorship with MailChimp, so the serial model, as it were.
I like MailChimp too. That was Serial put them on the map with the little girl who couldn't pronounce it.
Yeah, mail crimp or whatever.
I never thought of that.
Yeah, you should have done that.
I should have done that. Never thought of that. Yeah, podcast. You know, podcasting has been in the news quite a bit lately. Just completed a 5-part series on podcast from who was it? The Newhouse folks. Who was it that did that? Point. Anyway, fascinating. Was it Pointer? Was it Pointer? Might have been Pointer. What scared me in the very first article, it said, "Here comes the ad tech," and I thought, oh, that really worked well for the web. Why would anyone want to take a nice, pristine thing like a podcast? And start doing things like monitoring users and intrusive advertising and all of that.
Well, I mean, the challenge is that, I mean, you notice it's not an accident that Squarespace is successful, because the nature of their business is they have two things. One, they have a way to track conversions, which is that code, which is why you have the battle of the affiliate codes. But two, they have significant lifetime value. So you see a lot of these purchases are Squarespace. The lifetime value of a customer is pretty significant. So the spend is worth it. And and you have things like Casper mattresses, for example, is a common advertiser. That's a relatively high price item, and you don't see a lot of relatively lower price items that don't have a easy means of tracking. I mean,
because they want to be on an 80 million viewer. They want to be on television.
Right.
Where there's a lot of reach.
Big reach.
And we don't offer massive numbers. We offer quality numbers. But if you're trying to sell 1 million pencils, it's not going to be very useful to you, right? Quality isn't what you're counting on.
Right, but that means there's a bit of a chasm in which, without evidence that there is a benefit, it's not worth the effort of doing it. And I think that certainly no one wants advertising tech like the web, but I think it's easy for people who are established in podcasting to say everything's great, let's leave it the way it is for forever. But the reality is the medium is not going to reach its full potential with the current model. Like it's going to be ultimately crimped, and I think that would be unfortunate. So hopefully there can be some sort of middle ground where there is a model that works for more advertisers than a very distinct set that advertises now. And there's a whole world of advertisers that is massively larger and has a lot more money that doesn't right now, and that's just because without any sort of measurement, it's not worth the effort.
Maybe there's also a big category, the brand advertiser. That's the ones you see on football and baseball and playoffs. That they don't have. I mean, if Ford advertises on a buys 18 million impressions on a football game, they can't really say, well, let's see how the car sales do tomorrow. But they do a lot of research, and they bought podcasts, and some brands have. I think that's going to be where you're going to see it. And their ad tech isn't going to help them either. It's just a kind of an act of faith that you can build a brand on a podcast, and they haven't come to that conclusion yet.
There's actually a couple things in the podcasting world that I'm really interested in that I think might be able to address some of the issues we're talking about. They aren't coming from an advertising-centric place yet, but there's an app called 60dB that I actually was looking at the other day, an early version of it, and Twit's on there. It's basically some former NPR folks, some former Facebook folks, and some former Netflix folks, people who worked on the news feed and also the recommendation engine for Netflix, and they're all about basically delivering you short form podcasts based on your interests. So they are amassing some data.
They want to be the Netflix of podcasting.
Exactly.
Basically.
And then This American Life just came out with something for their podcast where you can share a short, like 30-second clip, and they're trying to make, I think the headline was, trying to make it as shareable as the GIF.
Shareable would be great. I'm not excited about anything that commoditizes our premium product. So
yeah, so I mean,
60dB is not something I'd be looking for, but it might help others. I just feel like anything that commoditizes the product isn't going to be a long-run solution for anybody who's making the content.
It'll be interesting.
I mean,
to see
that's
where
what's
this
happened
goes.
in newspapers. They become commoditized.
Right.
Nobody goes to NewYorkTimes.com.
Yeah, yeah.
But one of the problems that you see is that you see a lot of podcasters who are trying, you know, they're supposed to be doing the kind of ads that you do, but you can tell that they don't care. They don't know about the products really. They're pretending to. They don't sell it. They don't believe in it. They haven't vetted the advertisers, and so they're
it's like radio, in other words.
Exactly. They're simply employees doing what they were told,
Right.
and you can't fake it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the difference. So sometimes on this network it works great, and on other networks the exact same general idea completely fails.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I will always fall in favor of not even thinking about advertising, but thinking about the community and building the community's loyalty, because I think in the long run, advertising works on podcasts because the people who listen to those podcasts care about the podcast and want to support them. And instead of asking you to give us money directly, we say, well, here's some products you might be interested in. And if we pick the products wisely, and that's a big part of it, then the audience can show its loyalty by buying those products. That's a very handmade process.
Yes.
That's not something that's ever going to translate to mass media.
Right.
Which is fine with me. I work in mass media. I know about mass media.
Right. It sucks.
It is. This is not mass media, and I'm happy about it. All right, let's talk. Let's see. Where should we go from here? Should we talk about Yahoo?
I'd love to talk about Yahoo.
Yahoo. Wow, this is a sad.
We should get to the Pixel phone.
Oh, all right. Maybe we'll do the Pixel, then we'll do Yahoo next.
That could
all
be a
right?
natural
Okay.
transition point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Google had October 4th. We've had time now, 2 weeks to adjust their big product announcement. They announced a lot of products, not just 2 new Pixel phones replacing the Nexus phones, but also a Google router system, very much like the Eero, Google VR visor, very much like the Samsung Gear VR, and Google Home. I don't know what you call that category, very much like the Amazon Echo.
Voice-controlled speakers, AI speakers, something like that.
I don't know. Does that really say what the category is?
Virtual assistant appliance. How about that?
Yeah, that may. Well, it really is.
No,
what it
I
is.
think
Yeah.
no. What Mike
What's the
just said
category,
is
Ben?
what Mike just said is spot on. Because I think our inclination is to, you just listed all the hardware products, but that's not how Google presented it, and I think that's very important to note. Google,
It's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's an ecosystem of intelligence.
Well, Sundar Pichai, he started by kind of recounting the history of technology as he characterized it, which was the the PC, then the internet, then mobile, and then he said the next epoch is going to be AI. I would quibble with the AI definition a little bit, which we can get to in a second, but that was the context, was Google Assistant, and they spent 20 minutes going over Google Assistant before they got to any hardware, and that is the context in which the hardware was being introduced. I think that's really important to understand, because you talked about the Pixel phone, it being expensive and stuff like that. Well, I guess the the question is, why is Pixel different? Why does it have a new name? Why is it not called Nexus? Why do they have a deal with Verizon when they never had a deal with Verizon before? Why are they spending a lot of marketing? I was watching, what was I watching? Oh, I was watching the Wisconsin Badgers game. I'm having a rough football weekend.
And they had those terrible Pixel ads.
Yeah.
Right, but
they spent, what was it? A huge amount of money in 24 hours, several $1 million. There it is, $3.2 million in 2 days. But that's money that they've never spent. They've never spent previously. And so, to me, my reaction to that is to figure out why is this such a completely different approach. And then you back up and you think about the assistant. And I expect the Google Assistant to be excellent. I've ordered a Pixel phone. I look forward to trying it. And you think about it, why wouldn't it be? That's what Google is good at. And Google's technology is very, very well placed for a quote-unquote AI future. But this is a very different play by Google, because they're putting, for the first time ever, a feature in their phone that other Android handset manufacturers don't yet have access to.
Exactly. Because what's the problem? The problem is that the future is terrible for Google's business model. Google's business model is about providing users a selection, and they pick one, and they put their advertisers in a competition against each other, and the user selects the winner of that competition. That doesn't work at all in an assistant world. They don't have a business model for the assistant world. And so you look at what they're doing, what does Apple do? Apple, you don't buy an Apple because you want an iPhone per se, although that is a significant advantage Apple has, and that's definitely the case in many markets. Again, particularly in China, I think is a great example of this. But you buy it because it's the only way you can get iOS. If you prefer iOS, you only have one option. Apple effectively has a monopoly on iOS. And you buy an iPhone, you give Apple a huge margin to do so. Well, if Google Assistant ends up being the best assistant by a long shot, and if assistants end up being a viable way that people interact with the world, what is a proven way to make money on a highly differentiated feature? To sell a very high margin piece of hardware, that's the only way to get it. And given that context and what they're doing, I think at a minimum, Google is at least exploring a pretty significant shift in their business model. And all the evidence of spending lots of money to promote it, having it only on their one device, all these things at least suggest that they're experimenting with a world beyond sort of AdSense. And to me, that's why this is one of the most interesting announcements that we've seen in a very long time in tech generally.
I completely agree.
That sounds really compelling, but at the Google event, I was there, and in speaking with a couple executives and the head of the search team and the head of the home team, that's not what they're doing. They told me that they're going to make the assistant available to be built into as many devices as possible. And in fact, they said to expect at CES that there would be a wave of assistant speakers made by other manufacturers at lower price points. So that sounds good.
In fact, adding assistant is a simple thing to do to
it's a very simple
existing
thing to do.
phones
and
with
they
a
also,
little hack,
and
not
they,
a Google-approved hack.
And they also spoke about at the event that they're going to open up an SDK next year to allow other people to create other assistant commands. So you might be right. And here's the thing is with Google, you can never really tell what the hell they're doing because they will change their mind.
Because they don't know.
6 months later down the road.
Yeah.
So I think, what
That's
they're
intentional on their part. I think they're throwing
it is.
up against the wall. They're letting it's Darwinian.
What they're telling me versus what Ben is saying could be the future are two totally different things. And they might be flirting with both. And to see where they gain traction first might be the direction they go.
Is this inconsistent, Ben, with your analysis? I mean, it doesn't have to be only on Google hardware to succeed.
Well, to me, it's a very, and I've also heard. Well, the big question to me is the phone OEMs. So, one, I've heard rumors as well that Google is making it available in some form and manner to phone OEMs. What I'm curious about is two things. One, it's not a part of Android; it is a separate thing. So, are they going to be charging the OEMs for it? That would be an interesting revenue stream for this. And you add on that the fact that Samsung acquired Viv, the personal assistant. And it seems that's I'm sure assuredly Samsung knew this move was coming. I think
Viv, we should point out,
surmise.
Was created by the folks who created Siri and sold it to Apple.
And importantly, it's the thing out there that's closest to Assistant in terms of AI with multi-agency.
Robert Scoble published in a very interesting post on Facebook. He said the reason Viv did not want to sell to Samsung, that was the last thing they wanted to do, but they saw the writing on the wall with Apple, and they saw that where Siri was going would basically make them useless, so they sold fast.
Right.
Is that possible?
Right. And so yes. Well, the question, I mean, so to me that suggests that Assistant, if it is available to non-Google phones, I'm very curious as to what the terms of that are.
They give Chrome to everybody, knowing that it's going to generate revenue for Google in the same way that an Assistant, even if it's given away, will generate revenue to Google. Wouldn't you want, once you create this and get it working properly, wouldn't you want it to be everywhere?
Absolutely, because I want everybody to imagine a future that's like Star Trek. So maybe 5 years out, 10 years out, you just talk.
President Obama says it's going to be more than that.
Okay, well, you know,
he's
not exactly a technology columnist.
Did you read his amazing article in Wired?
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
My general observation, this is Obama, is that AI has been seeping into our lives in all sorts of ways we just don't notice. And part of the reason is because the way we think about AI is colored by popular culture, sci-fi.
Yep.
There's a distinction between generalized AI and specialized AI. All you hear about in sci-fi is generalized AI, the kind of thing you're talking about.
Yep.
But that's hard to do. It's not, he says, my impression based on talking to my top science advisors, who are obviously probably pretty good, is that we're a reasonably long way away from that. It's the specialized AI that we're going to see and are seeing in every aspect of our lives, from medicine to transportation to the grid. I thought that was very interesting.
Each individual will have what is essentially a personal artificial intelligence agent that is always available. It could be like her. I hope it doesn't.
I hope it sounds like Scarlett.
Yeah, but essentially it will do three things, and there are three, and these three things are essentially all the things. So first of all, it does everything that the public AI, the thing that Obama was talking about, the public AI, the Google search type things, the generic things. A. B, it'll know all your personal data. In the case of Assistant, it will know everything, every Gmail message, everything you do. It will monitor your search results. It'll do all that kind of stuff, and also pay attention to what you do and how you interact with it, and give you a personal Google. And then the third thing is to control every object, every smart object in your world. All three of those things simply by having a conversation with this AI. So you just say, I want this, I want that. And what AI enables you to do, which Alexa does not, is it will choose the third-party service.
Right.
Because right now with Alexa, you have to install it, you have to find it, you have to memorize it.
It's a true intermediary between you.
And that's the financial opportunity secondary to
Wouldn't
the one
Google want to get in between every transaction?
Exactly.
Well, that's why they want to have their AI front and center and everywhere.
But the scary thing is for all of these companies is you're going to pick one, and you're going to want to have one following you throughout all your day. You're not going to want to switch between Siri and this and Cortana.
No, but you're going to pick the one that works the best.
Exactly.
So it's a race at this point,
And
right?
it works the best if it has the best AI, if it's the most ubiquitous, and if it's the most personalization. And Google wins on all three of those.
Walt Mossberg wrote
So
go ahead, Ben, and I'll talk about Mossberg.
on the business model perspective. It's not clear to me, one, that there is a business model there as an intermediary, and two, even if there are some categories where they can charge some sort of like affiliate fee, to get back to our sort of podcast example here.
Or Chrome example.
It's an affiliate fee model is going to be a significant top line reduction for Google's business. Right now, Google's search business generates in part such high revenues because there is a lifetime value calculation that goes into a lot of these advertisements, where these customers are looking to acquire a user for a ongoing relationship, not just a one-time relationship. A relationship where Google is the intermediary for everything sounds good in theory, but if you actually look at the way they make money and the margins and the rates that they can get on a purchase, it's going to be a cut in revenue. Now, maybe they make up in volume because there's so many things, but the number of categories where they can actually earn an affiliate fee and to make up what they have now, it remains to be seen how that's going to work. And I don't and again, I'm not saying that it's going to be a pixel sell at a profit model in their future, but it certainly seems like they are at least experimenting with some new sort of business models that they haven't done before. And I think that's appropriate given their long-term challenges in that regard.
I think experimenting is exactly right, and any of all of these could pan out. But it also you also have to realize that they don't have to make up all the current revenue. They still will have video advertising. They'll still, who knows what the opportunities are going to be in VR. Yep. There are lots and lots of things coming. You can put billboards inside of self-driving cars. You know, there are lots of revenue models that are coming. But the biggest problem, I think, is that they realize that both apps and search are going to be replaced to a very large extent by just people talking to their AI assistant.
Yeah.
And that's what they're
I think we
freaking
all
out
agree
about.
on that Google is saying we got to figure out what the future is going to look like.
Definitely.
And I think AI seems like a sensible place to look.
Yep.
I think part of the thing I worry about is you and I, we know what we want. We want her.
Yes.
We want this generalized intelligence that can act as a true assistant. It's so funny in Daring Fireball, John Gruber's rebuttal to Walt Mossberg says assistant is the right term for this class of software, but I can't imagine how stupid an actual human assistant would have to be not to understand a request like find out when the next debate is and put it on my calendar.
Yeah.
And yet none of these can do it.
Right.
He's pointing out how stupid they are right now. And
They're
wondering,
all very stupid
I'm
right now.
also wondering if even though we want a particular kind of AI, if from a purely financial business point of view, if that's not the kind of AI Google or anybody else would want to give us, they may want to say, look, what we'll do is we'll have a bidding war between Yelp and OpenTable, and whoever pays us the most amount of money, that's who you'll be calling on when you ask for a reservation. And that isn't the world you and I want. We want an assistant that is working for us, not working for Google.
Yes.
And I think Google probably wants the opposite.
And I think of all the ones, you know, that are competing in this space, of all the companies that are competing in this space, Apple's the one that's going to most deliver that.
Well,
But not on Android.
look at Walt
This is
Mossberg,
true.
because he says, why does Siri seem so dumb? And if it doesn't get better soon, what does that mean for Apple? And I'm going to paraphrase, but I think it's fair to say that Apple has chosen a path that ultimately is a dead end in terms of artificial intelligence.
Well, Siri
Privacy.
is not AI. Cortana is not. Google Now is
Siri
not.
is very stupid.
And so this is the thing that I'm fascinated about with the assistant, which is that, you know, Google, as we know, 2 years ago bought DeepMind, which is just top shelf artificial intelligence. This is the system that beat humans in Go and Atari Breakout and stuff like this. This is really, really good AI. And so I have the feeling that Assistant is like HAL when it was singing Daisy. And they've replaced something that was a pretty sophisticated, non-artificial intelligent virtual assistant with a baby virtual assistant, which will now go through preschool and learn and
so
learn
they took
and learn.
a step back so they could take a step forward.
Exactly. That and they're using machine learning and all this kind of powerful stuff. That
Wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah. And so I think.
I wonder, though.
Yeah.
Well, seems like I agree with you. Google's got the upper hand, and of course everybody's trying this, including Facebook, including Microsoft.
I think Facebook least of all. They're the furthest behind.
Yeah, except for Mark
trying.
Zuckerberg is
They're
trying to build an assistant in his home named Jarvis.
There's that. Yeah.
And you have to think that's more than Mark's 20% project.
I think so, but if
Also
you
a
look at
flying
what they
suit.
have out there in the public, and of course you don't have to be first to win this. Apple is rarely first,
have
and
to
they
be
win a lot of
best.
things.
You just
but
have to be best.
If you look at the chatbots, they're trash. I mean, they're terrible.
I agree. Facebook took a wrong turn with, or at least from the outside, what it looks like took a wrong turn with chatbots.
I'm really intrigued by what you're saying, Mike, with the assistant. I think to a certain extent, there's a part of that. I think what we're also seeing a lot of here is a bit of a real marketing smokescreen from Google to a certain extent. A lot of what they're doing with Assistant, as it's built into Android and as it's built into Allo, which you text with, is built on what they had with voice search and what they had with Google Now before.
Yes, that's right.
So to a certain extent, they're taking these pre-existing products and they're just giving it a new name and they're representing it in a new way, and they're telling you it's something new when it's an evolution of something that already existed, thanks in large part to, like you said, the stuff that they have from DeepMind to take it another level up. But they're still very far away from where they need to be, and I just want to bring this up because I think there's an echo chamber inside of tech journalism right now that is saying Assistant is new and it's better than Siri, it's better than Cortana, it's better than Alexa. And Assistant is not that new. It's mostly a rebranding, and there's some.
Is it the same
slightly
as
smarter
they
stuff.
showed 2 years ago at I/O, where they they actually showed contextual
it's built on
recognition?
that.
Yeah.
But I have the feeling that the intelligence is in the input, not the output. So right now the output is kind of like, oh, I basically just did a Google search then.
Right.
Yes. What you're saying.
Yes.
But what happens when you tell it you don't like that, or
It starts to wire it
I
up.
think it does,
Yeah.
and there are a couple of things about it that are impressive. Little things like I was texting with my brother-in-law, and I was saying, hey, check out this picture of this pizza. We were just trying out aloe. It was like the first or second day that it was out.
I think aloe is pretty fun.
Yeah, and then it intervened in our conversation. It jumped in, like a Baninsky. Just jumped in and said, hey, you guys like Italian food?
you with a pizza.
Yeah, here's a restaurant nearby. It's a high
That is not what you want.
It depends. Sometimes you do, and sometimes you don't. It's not that smart.
It's not
It's
an easy
looking
thing
for
to do.
trigger words.
Yes.
Is what it's looking
Yeah,
for.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
looking for little
So
signals.
if
It's still
Google
not that
is
smart.
Daisy, Apple Siri is
Yeah, exactly.
It's the one, the dying one.
Yeah.
But who's going to get to HAL 9000 first, where it says, I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah, that's going to be Google, I think. Yeah.
Well, there's all these. If you took those three companies, they have all different challenges. Apple has the business model that works, and I think it's fair to question their technology, not because Apple's dumb, but just because the sort of thinking and approach that goes into building fantastic products is not necessarily the thinking approach that goes into building iterative web.
Don't they
services.
also have a problem because they've espoused privacy and they've said it's all going to happen on device and we don't want to share your data? And isn't that an issue also?
I mean, yes, I guess the question is to what extent is the privacy a cause, and to which extent is it a making lemons out of lemonade question, and then to what extent have those become fused? I think that's something that's.
I think
that's fair to
Apple's
ask about.
decided that that's their marketing advantage.
Yep.
They're going to choose that, but I think it's not a good
But AI
future
is
for an
very
assistant.
hard if you're trying to
Apple.
do that.
Maybe
the
Apple,
other thing is,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, Apple has. I think Apple has designs on a pretty significant business in health in general, and so I think that that will be to their benefit.
By the way,
Google's big problem
Microsoft
is
and Google both very interested in those categories.
This is true.
Yeah.
Well, and also have pretty significant failed initiatives.
Yes, both have health initiatives that failed. You're right.
Yeah.
The
And
big problem
Samsung
for
too.
Google.
Yeah.
The big problem for Google is they have what I've called a go-to-market problem. Like, they have great technology, and the question is, how do they actually get it so that people can use it? And I might make this point about Siri being available on Apple before. Yes, they have Android, but that is only a part of the market, and it's not the most valuable part of the market because Apple has them. So Apple has the business model. We're not sure about the tech. Google has the tech. We're not sure about the access and the business model. Facebook has the attention, and that's something that's very valuable. And I think I guess that's my quibble about the future being AI. Like, to me, it's not just about the technology, it's about how you access that technology. And Facebook has multiple avenues to garner attention, and they garner significant amounts of attention.
And they have all the data that Google has plus, right?
Yeah.
They do, but they are behind. I mean, it was really funny last year when Mark Zuckerberg did a post about Google's AI being able to play Go. And then literally like 12 hours later, Google had posted that they
beating human beings.
Google had posted that they had won. Yeah, that they beat like a grandmaster at Go.
Yeah, but every avenue that Facebook has is a fraction or a subset of what Google has. Facebook doesn't have a browser. They don't have a line of phones. Yep. They don't have a Google Home type product.
There's a lot of browser if you live in your browser on Facebook.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, in a way, they do, right? You open your browser, you open Facebook, and Facebook launches you to every other page.
Well, that's what
thereafter.
Facebook would love. They want you to never leave
Browsers
Facebook.
are pretty meaningless in the future.
At this point, yeah.
I mean, they're not really used on the phones. Yes, we browse the web a lot, but mostly in the context of a feed. And Facebook has some of the best feeds in the industry.
Right.
And in the future of an assistant, we're certainly not going to be on a browser in an assistant world. I mean, this is Google's conundrum in a nutshell. Their business model, everything about their business is best in a browser.
What if Google, I don't know if this would work, but what if Google stepped forward and said, look, this is what we want to make her. We want to make HAL.
Yeah.
That minus the Pod Bay Door thing.
Hurl. If you combine them.
I mean, they've spoken openly
and
about
we
the Star
need
Trek
your
idea.
help to do this. We need you to be early adopters. And we understand that what we're making is far from that at this point, but with your help, with your data, your interaction, you're going to teach our little AI how to become the assistant you truly want.
They don't have to say that. They're already doing
kind
it.
of,
That's
the message that's coming forward.
That's the message of the company.
They
Really.
don't want to say it explicitly because consumers might not buy that message. But we geeks, I would say, yeah, I'll help you.
Yeah. Well, I think that's always been the trade-off with Google is give us more of your information.
Right.
You know, and
make it more explicit is what I'm saying.
They could be more clear about it for sure. Yeah. But I mean, that's exactly, and that's the thing is like right now they're not quite doing that. And
I'm offering this as an antidote to Ben's appropriate go-to-market conundrum.
Yeah.
What if you go to the market and say, okay, we understand this is Daisy. We'd like to get to open the pod bay doors. And your help is needed. How would you like to help us? It
would be interesting because to a certain extent, they've taken that data without fully explaining it to the public, and I think a lot of people don't realize how much they're giving up.
Right.
And
I'm saying take
really
that, turn on
they
its
might
head.
not. Yeah.
Turn it on its head.
I think
say, we're taking your data, but this is why.
Yeah.
We want to make something that's. I mean, that's what Google Now was, right? But it wasn't explicit. Make it explicit.
Yeah.
That's not what's holding Google back. I mean, if it were so easy just to ask people to help you out, then there'd be a lot more successful businesses because anyone could do that. Like there's a reason why Samsung spends $400 million. Well, no, but that's a great point. It goes back to our podcast thing. You talked about creating the community and all the excellent things that you've done with Twit, and that's been successful for you. I mean, not to say anything bad about your business. It's bigger than mine, but it's you're a lot closer to me than you are to Google.
Oh hell yeah!
No, absolutely. To that size. And there's a reason.
So you're
why
saying
Samsung
that kind of approach would not scale?
It doesn't scale at all. And there's a reason why Samsung spends $350 million to $400 million a year on marketing their phones. And there's a reason why you had all those ads, whether you think they're good or bad, about Pixel. If you are serious about getting in front of consumers and getting meaningful market share, meaningful attention share, they're going to have to invest and spend their way into it. And actually, to me, that's my biggest root of skepticism. I mean, I put this nice theoretical thing about a new business model for them. The reality is they've never demonstrated either the capability or, frankly, the stomach to build a business beyond their business fell in their lap. They had a brilliant technological product that people like. Google is the exception that proves the rule. Google won by having the best tech and people used it because it was better. That is very rarely why products win.
Well, I think to a certain extent now we're getting to a point where a lot of people choose Google products because they don't like Apple. And it's like an alternative to Apple. And it's like the only other place to go.
Really?
I think to a
people
certain
like
extent.
Voting against Apple by choosing Google?
Well, people are either voting for Apple or voting against Apple, but Apple is that's what
Apple's
drives
what everyone. That's the yeah.
Well,
I mean, I talked to.
I can only use myself as an example, but I choose Android because it's more flexible, more powerful. I can do more of what I want to do.
I get a lot
not
of
as a
people
vote
who just
against
say
Apple,
they
and I'm
hate
carrying an iPhone right now because I'm waiting for the Pixel.
Yeah.
But it's not a vote against Apple, really.
I think a lot of consumers make
that. Just shows how dominant Apple is. Then
yes.
I mean, you know, why? And I'd love to maybe hear what everyone has to say about how Amazon and Alexa fits into this, how Microsoft and Cortana fits into this.
Let's talk more. I want to take a break. Well, let's talk more. Our show today brought to you by My Mattress. We were talking about Casper mattresses. This is a perfect example. Online retailer of premium mattresses made in the U.S. And, you know, I'm not sure why they advertise on our show, except that I think they think you guys need a better night's sleep. That'll be my guess, right?
Probably a good guess.
Your audience is exhausted.
You guys are exhausted. It is. You know what? It is more and more. The evidence is the best thing you can do for your health is to sleep properly, to sleep well. And it starts with a great mattress. They combine springy latex foam that's on top, but then they give you support with the memory foam, and so you're getting underneath. So you're getting, it's hard to describe. You got to try it. Kind of this combination of comfort and support. It's just what I want, because I always slept on firm mattresses, but they were too firm. My hips would hurt. This is perfect. It's a 2016 Business Intelligence Group Innovation Award winner. Just the right sink, just the right bounce, and lasts a long time. They also are cool. I can tell you from this hot summer, the Casper was great because it breathes. So you're never sleeping hot. Your temperature is very comfortable all the time. And now, the best part is you can try it in your home and not in some shop for 5 minutes under bright lights with a salesperson looking at you funny. But you and your loved ones can all get on that mattress and really give it a workout for the next 100 days. And if at any time in the first 100 days you say, yeah, it's not right, they understand, you know, we're not going to let them try it, so we've got to make it easy to return. You call them up, they will take it back, courier will come get it. You don't have to put it back in the box. People say, how am I going to get back in that box?
Right.
No, you don't have to. You can throw the box out. They'll just come and get it. I think they donate it is what they do. I don't think they even resell it. They just donate it to a local charity. But you get every penny back. So there is no risk at all. Free shipping and returns to the U.S. and Canada. They are made in the U.S. and to the highest environmental production standards. You know, I was a little concerned when I got in the box. It's all sealed up. I thought, am I going to open this up and I have to let it breathe for a while before? No. It smells great. It's cool. It's a very refreshing night's sleep. You'll love it. And it's very affordable. We're going to make it even more affordable with $50 off any mattress when you use the promo code TWIT. Casper, CASPER.com/twit. Casper.com/twit. Terms and conditions apply. $50 off any mattress. I got one also for my son in college because the poor guy really wasn't thrilled about sleeping on the dorm mattress, and I don't blame him. God knows what's been going on there. And
that's a rite of passage. Come on.
It is. I know. I did. You did. They're not comfortable.
They're terrible.
They're stained. I always wonder about those stains. Is that blood?
Yeah.
And then
they're bad.
And then so I was nice. I was a nice father. I said, look for a box. And because it comes in that box, he was just schlepped it upstairs.
That's cool.
And I also said, graduate, leave your mattress. It's okay. Because it wasn't expensive. He could, he could leave. The next guy's going to be very happy.
What happened to that video of you doing that slow?
Yeah, why don't we show me diving into my mattress anymore? I guess they figured you've seen it. Ben Thompson is here. Stratechery, STRATECHERY, a great site. He does free articles every week, but also a paid newsletter, which I subscribe to, with some of the best analysis of what's going on in the tech industry. And it's always a thrill to have you on from Taipei, Taiwan.
And so some of the worst lighting at this new office.
Lighting is so irrelevant. But you got a view, dude. I love that. Yeah. Is that of Taipei? What is that?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, nice. So. Very pretty. You've lived there for how long now?
This is my second stint. I've been here 3 years this time.
Okay.
And I was here 6 years previously, so 9 total.
Oh, how's your Chinese?
It's decent.
Good.
Yeah, the way I put it is, if you can't speak Chinese, you will think it's phenomenal. And if you can, you think it has.
Oh, you speak Mark Zuckerberg level Chinese then, right?
Exactly.
A little better than Mark.
Mark Zuckerberg, well, he has an incredible vocabulary, frankly, but he speaks Chinese like someone who's spent a lot of time by himself studying Chinese, right, and not a lot of time speaking with people.
Right.
There's tones, and his tones are kind of all over the place. But his vocabulary is really good. I think his vocabulary is probably better than mine is. So it is. I mean, make no mistake, it's super duper impressive.
It is impressive.
It's an incredibly difficult language to learn.
Yeah.
I don't think his approach to China is very impressive, but his speaking Chinese.
What is his approach to what is Facebook's
He doesn't
China
approach
strategy?
China.
Well, I think it's extremely differential, to say the least. I think it's it's such a massive market. It's very understandable from that perspective why they want in. I'm not sure he. I think he's a little optimistic about what would happen if Facebook was actually allowed in China, right, and the corrosive impact, frankly, that would have on him and on Facebook, the company.
Because he would have to obey the laws of China.
Well, it would almost certainly have to be a separate Facebook that would be different from regular Facebook. It would have to be hosted in China. There would have to be tracking and censorship and all the sorts of things that are expected of that. And it's not just that, but it's not just you responding to requests, like responding to a takeout request. There's an expectation that a company that's doing this is proactive in doing this. And so you see what happens a lot in these networks in China is stuff gets censored without the government having to do it, because
we just know
there's an over response. Yeah, in an expectation of it.
Yeah.
And when and if they become even remotely successful, at any time the government can pull the plug on them. I don't think it's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
currently blocked by the Great Firewall of China.
Yeah.
As
it is, and it always will be at the current version. Yeah. I think the return is not nearly what he thinks it will be, and I think there's a little bit of a we will be different sort of attitude about it that I don't think is justified. And frankly, I hope that it's never allowed in because, like I said, I think it would be bad for the company. I think it'd be bad for their culture to be a part of that, and I don't think it'd be profitable to boot.
I could just see, I feel like it's almost like Kilroy. I could see American companies looking over the wall saying 1 billion customers, 1 billion customers. How do we get in there, 1 billion customers? But Google's had problems. Yahoo's had problems. We're going to talk about
even
Yahoo
Apple's had problems. Anything that involves free speech, if you enable free speech, they will never let you succeed in China.
Well, I mean, even beyond that, I mean, also, it's questionable whether they're going to ever really let a foreign company, succeed. I mean, the reason why Apple has, and Apple, I've used this phrase before, but is the sort of exception that proves the rule in this case, is because of their business model, because they're selling hardware that's differentiated by software. Software will be pirated or copied. Web services will be blocked. The one way that companies have always made money in China is making hardware. Of course, most of them were making ultimately stuff with Windows or that could be easily commoditized because Apple products are not easily commoditized, yet are still hardware. That's the reason they've been the one company to succeed. But notice, as Apple has pushed more into services,
it's getting harder.
It's getting harder, and China's messing with them significantly more than they were before.
Specifically around communication, because they were accused by Chinese-owned media of harvesting data about the Chinese people and where they are as part of this big plot. I mean, this is the big concern. The Chinese government does not want American companies coming in and enabling Chinese citizens to talk to each other without monitoring or control.
Interestingly, you might associate this to an authoritarian communist post-Mao government, but it isn't. It's historically, going back to the Boxer Rebellion, China has always hated the influence of the West and is, well, not always, but almost always, and often fought it off violently. So this is almost a cultural thing as much as it is political.
There are the two big China hot buttons are at play here. One is domination by foreign powers, and the second one is, China historically has just had one big, massive dynasty change through either through conquering or whatever, or also they're concerned about losing control of the population. They're concerned about
it's a big country. It's interesting both China and Russia, massive land masses, difficult to control, have this tendency to authoritarianism. It may be the only way you can control it. And now here in the United States, we're moving in that direction as well. Big land mass, hard to control. Ben, I'm sorry, we shouldn't be analyzing China with a guy who's sitting in Taipei right now.
That's right.
if we're completely off base, just pretend we know what we're doing.
Things are great.
I'm just drinking tea.
Can you say Huawei?
None of my business.
Actually, Facebook launched its at-work product this week to the public. It's been out for a long time in beta. This is an interesting play because Facebook is an intranet. We should point out this is not a LinkedIn competitor. This is not a business-focused social network.
It's kind of a Slack competitor. Yeah,
but Slack is so much smaller in capability. I mean, it competes with not just Slack, but Basecamp and everybody else who's trying to do Trello. On the one hand, I think as a company, you might say, well, my employees love Facebook. They know how to use Facebook. There's no training involved. It gives me all the features of these others. But on the other hand, you might worry a little bit about giving this information to Facebook, even though they do promise it's private.
They change that a lot, though, don't they? I feel like Facebook is one of the companies you can't trust to be consistent.
They are charging for this. It is not free.
They are $3 per user.
That's a lot less than Slack.
Up to 1,000 users, and then it's $2 up to 10,000, and $3 over that.
It's one of the most affordable solutions, right?
And the enterprise space is like one of the few spaces where you can charge for this sort of thing. They no way they could charge consumers for this sort of thing.
And after all, the biggest competitor here would be SharePoint for Microsoft and Google. And I don't know, you might trust Microsoft in the enterprise, but I don't know if Google's any more trustworthy than Facebook in the enterprise. What do you think, Ben?
Well, I mean, to be clear, that it is separate. The data is all separate from the consumer app, and frankly, I think it's fair to expect that will be the case. I mean, their credibility and opportunity to be completely shot if that were not the case, or ever shown to not be the case. That said, certainly theoretically, again, there's a lot here that makes sense. People know how to use it. It's mobile first, all that sort of thing. I think it is much bigger than Slack. It's a whole-scale sort of replacement for your communications infrastructure. That's also a problem, I think, because the way you get into an enterprise, given the nature of it and the way it has to be tied into identity, this is a top-down sort of product that's going to be implemented by a CIO, for example, or in a startup or wherever it might be. And that's a challenge. That means building a Salesforce. That means building all the sorts of things that, again, Facebook has not shown any inclination or capability or willingness to do. The big difference with something like Slack is Slack has two advantages that don't seem like advantages at first. But the first advantage is it only does chat, which is, well, Facebook does so much more. Well, if you have a company that already has an established communications infrastructure, Slack is offering a new thing, which is community chat. Yes, we've had it with IRC, but for most people, it's a new product. And so it slots in with what's already there. And so there's more opportunity for one. But then two, Slack's free to try. All you need is an email address. And if you like it and you need some of the capabilities, a team manager can pull out his company credit card and can pay for it. And so you can have more of a bottoms-up sort of infiltration of the enterprise approach, where Slack eventually, once they build up a sales team, can go to the CIO and say, oh, by the way, 70% of your, 60% of your company is already using our product. How will we put together a product that works for a deal that works for your whole company? And I think that's a really revolutionary change in selling enterprise software, and it's only enabled by being on the cloud, and that's a big shift. And Facebook, as compelling as the product will be, and I think there will be some businesses where it's going to be really successful and make a lot of sense, the level of commitment needed and the way it's going to be sold, I think, are going to be challenges for the product. And frankly, it feels like let's do it because we can. And that's not a good route to success in business, frankly. Like you succeed in business because you align an entire organization and incentives and the way you make money around making your product successful, not throwing something over the wall because, oh, we're already using it internally. Maybe you'll like to use it too.
Well, there you go. Just forget it, Mark. Not a chance in hell.
I think there is a chance. The thing to remember is it is a great product, and Facebook has been using it. It has been beta testing, and you talk to anyone at Facebook, I've never met anyone who doesn't love that. That's often their favorite thing about working at Facebook is the way that you can use Facebook.
They use it internally,
groups and stuff.
It started that way. That was other products.
And I've actually had some personal experience here, not using Facebook, but when I was at Automatic, we use a combination of what are called P2 blogs. It's kind of a front-facing, front-posting blog that feels a lot like Facebook. Plus, it was IRC then. They use Slack now, along with Skype for video chatting. And we kind of patched together this multi-piece communication layer that was amazing. I've never felt more connected and in the loop about what's going on, despite the fact Automatic's totally remote and people live all over the world. So like this idea of this completely new way of doing communications is compelling, and the fact Facebook's offering an integrated solution that does that is amazing. I guess the big question I have is, again, the sort of go-to-market thing. How are they going to actually get companies using that? And the nature of the product being all-in requires an all-in commitment from companies that use it. And so maybe if you're a startup, it might be super compelling to start your company working that way. Going into established companies, I think that just by virtue of being a single-use product and having a more compelling business model for a small team, that Slack still has pretty significant advantages.
And the going even earlier than startups, they're free to educational institutions, so universities might use it theoretically,
and nonprofits.
Nonprofits might use it, and so this could be a long-term play that could pay off, because if they can get people who need to get a solution like this, who can get it for free, and then they move into the workplace and so on, then that could work. I personally think it's going to fail, despite how good it apparently is. Most of the things that Facebook has launched over the years have completely failed. And I think
we forget that, don't we? A surprisingly large number of things Facebook has tried.
Yeah, so many things.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Yeah. Well, that's the case for all incumbent companies. I think the
incumbents don't generally innovate very well, do they?
Well, the problem is that when a company is started, its initial product is there's a need in the market that they are fulfilling, and everything about the company becomes aligned in fulfilling that need, whether it be the culture, whether it be how they make their incentives, the structure, how they make money, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And in the future, when a new opportunity comes up, their advantage is they have tons of resources, whereas another startup is very much aligned to the opportunity. And I think an unfortunate mistake a lot of pundits make is because resources can be easily measured and calculated, they over-index on resources when actually it's a lot of this other stuff. It's having a very focused company, a very focused product that matters more. And so, yeah, I'm with Mike. My default is against an incumbent shifting to a new area, particularly if it entails a new way of selling, a new business model. That's a lot more difficult shift to make than I think most people appreciate.
It's just really hard to get people to break their habits. I mean, in companies, we have established ways of doing things and communicating. I mean, I think a lot of us would love to give up email, but we can't get our newsroom to give up email to save our lives.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's so.
Hey, at least they don't make you use Lotus 1, 2, 3.
There's that.
Could be worse.
But we've tried to bring in Slack.
Companies use Lotus 1, 2, 3 for some companies are still using it.
I know.
It's hard to give up.
And some newsrooms I worked in the past used IRC and loved it. We've tried to adopt Slack, and it's in some teams in some parts of the journal it's been a tremendous success, and others it's a miserable failure and nobody uses it.
The trouble with IRC is you need a team that really understands IRC.
You got to be a little
and can customize the hell out of it.
Yeah.
But if they can, and they do, and I use our chat room as an example, we have really smart people.
Yeah.
It can be a very, very powerful, useful
it's
tool.
a blast. It's a blast. You got to be a little nerdy to use it. You know,
Yeah.
it's a blast.
It's very real time, very intimate. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. So
sorry.
I was just going to say, with agreeing with what you're saying, Ben. I mean, with Workplace trying to basically come at all fronts and do everything all at once, it seems like it might be great software, but to get people to give up all these things that they're used to, and they're even if they hate them, it's their routine, is difficult. So I feel like maybe the opportunity might come in a long-term play with those companies that are just starting, but I feel like this is probably going to fall on its face as well.
Yeah. You want to talk about Yahoo, or do you want to talk about Twitter, or do you want to? Are we done with Google? Have we talked about every aspect of the Google announcement? I think we've talked about the AI and where Google's going with that. Of the panel, who's actually gotten their hands on the phone? I did a hands-on with it at the event. You're the only
tried
one.
it out?
And then there are some people, I know one of our audience members has one waiting for him when he gets back to Australia.
Yeah.
Because Telstra screwed up.
Oh, and they started shipping them early.
They shipped them early. We haven't got one here. Jason Howell has his ordered. He'll get it in a few days on the 20th.
Yeah.
That's the earliest you get it. Mine doesn't come till the 8th. I'm very intrigued. I had to say my jaw dropped when they announced the price. The sticker shock.
Me too. I was a little disappointed in that.
Is that because the expectation the Nexus is always a little less expensive, or?
I don't know. I think they really want to position themselves as a premium brand of sorts.
But it doesn't seem to have all the flagship features.
Doesn't.
No SD card, no waterproofing.
No wireless charging.
No wireless charging. That's a big one for me.
Well, none of those were premium features according to Apple as of 2 months ago. So.
Oh, Apple's in its own
Apple
universe.
still doesn't have wireless charging.
It is
and they
waterproof.
don't have fast charging, which might be two reasons why their batteries don't blow up.
I think.
Well, and their batteries last all day. I've never had a phone last longer than
actually
a 6.
the 7. I was carrying around the battery case with the 6S, and I haven't needed it with the 7. Which I'm pretty impressed
Partly
by.
that's tight control of the ecosystem of the software,
the
OS, right?
For sure.
Stuff will not run in the background. You have to launch Google Photos periodically just to get it to back up your photos. That's Apple, it's their platform.
Yeah. I think we need to talk about Yahoo, though.
Let's talk about Yahoo.
I got to say, I'm still pretty mad about all this stuff.
I'm mad, too. And what I'm really disappointed, frankly, by Marissa Mayer. I expected better of her. Maybe I was foolish. But what's apparently the case, look, there's two big stories, of course, and we've mentioned them before. Yahoo was hacked, and pretty much the entire Yahoo user database leaked out. Yeah, they had passwords hashed, but we don't know how well hashed since it was a long time ago, probably not so well. And secret questions were in the clear, and emails were in the clear, obviously. And then the real question is, when did Yahoo know about this? And there's some evidence that Marissa Mayer knew as early as July, but kept it a secret in order to keep the Verizon sale alive.
Yep.
Now Verizon's calling foul and saying, hey, that's material information. They could either cancel the sale, or probably what they're going to do is get a significant discount.
Yeah.
$1 billion discount.
Which would be smart on their part, Yeah, it just...
So that's part one of the problem.
Yeah.
What did they know? When did they know it? Are we satisfied that they knew about it and sat on it? And if they did, that's
It sure seems that way. I mean,
That's reprehensible.
I forget the title of the fella who resigned, but there was basically one of their top security guys found out about this and then resigned and quit. I mean,
Alex Stamos, who is now at Facebook, ironically.
And how long ago was that? That was
it was a while ago.
It was like a year ago or something.
Yeah.
So it's like they've known about this for a long time. The data leak, the data breach, like you said, affected hundreds of millions.
500 million people. It's the largest data breach of all.
That
bigger than
happened years ago.
Bigger than anybody.
That happened years
Half a billion users, including you and me and everybody listening to this show.
It's like, if you use Yahoo, what reason do you have to stay using Yahoo right now? I mean, they've done everything they can to show us with these moves that they don't care about our privacy, about our security. It just feels like a huge slap in the face, massive disrespect.
Stamos joined Facebook as their chief security officer June 2015.
Yeah, yeah.
More than a year before even Yahoo was supposed to know. You got to wonder what was going on.
And I know there's certain things in contracts for guys like this so that he can't blab about it or whatever. But the fact that happened so long ago and we're just finding out about it now, and that Marissa Mayer knew about it and she tried to keep it secret for and listen, she's got to protect her shareholders. I get it.
No,
but God damn it,
she's
got to
protect her users
first. Because if you don't protect us, that's going out the window, and those shares aren't going to be worth a goddamn thing.
Yeah. Now, it's difficult to leave Yahoo. For a while, they disabled female forwarding. They put that back, saying, that was a mistake.
Too.
That was scheduled.
That wasn't a mistake.
That, too, pisses me off. I mean, the only thing I use Yahoo for right now is fantasy football. And as soon as the season's over, I'm out.
Well, I still use Flickr.
I swear to God.
I like Flickr. We use Flickr.
Flickr is great too. Listen, there's a lot of good stuff that Yahoo does, but all of these things are so bad.
Tumblr,
and so terrible.
It feels to me like the plane was on fire, and all they've been focused on is making sure their parachute is packed right and all that stuff, and they just wanted to get out before all this stuff blew up, and that is completely
kicking the can down the road.
Yeah, because
it'll be Verizon's problem soon.
Exactly.
Right?
Well,
I've had to say I've thought there was a problem with Yahoo for several years because it was Yahoo Mail that was always hacked. It was always Yahoo Mail that you got the email from your friend saying, I'm in Europe and I lost my wallet and send me $1,000. That was always Yahoo Mail.
Yep.
And I just feel like it's been insecure, at least for a long time. And maybe that breach, was already stuff was being filtered out of that breach. It's turn on two-factor. Do not. Now, here's the thing. Do not. We had a piece yesterday, and if you want to, we showed you how to delete your Yahoo Mail yesterday on the news.
We had a piece in that,
but I don't recommend it. A, because you got your football and you got your Flickr and you got your Tumblr, but B, because you don't remember you've been using the Yahoo email address as a way to maybe get second factor authentication or a reset on other accounts. And if you do release your account, they will reuse that email address. They've already started. They've done that before. So what you really would behoove you to do is kind of sanitize it, change the password, turn on two-factor, and then every month send one email.
Just we imagine that we're asking people to empty their Yahoo accounts of any sensitive data and then just leave it there and check on it once a month so that the company doesn't screw them over worse.
It's too late, though.
Jesus.
And this is a well understood within geek circles problem, right?
So okay, we have an update. LA Dodgers.
No, he said don't pound the table.
I was pounding the table, John. We're all pounding the table because of Yahoo.
It's
but
Marissa.
As long as you're here, could you check the Dodgers score?
Marissa Mayer's fault.
Now, speaking of Dodgers, they're not going to do their earnings call this week.
Yahoo canceled their earnings call. So
that
they can
was
avoid
an
these
awesome
questions.
segue, Leo. I just want to acknowledge that.
Speaking of Dodgers,
can
they do that? Can they do that?
Speaking of people who dodge things,
they still have to announce earnings.
So
right?
shady.
But they're not going to do their call.
They can cancel the call. They have to release earnings. But
they just don't want to answer questions.
Incredibly shady.
Look, if Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton can have a debate on Wednesday, Yahoo can have their earnings call.
They're not going to have a debate. I don't think they.
You don't think so?
No,
Maybe they'll cancel that too.
Yeah.
No way.
I know. No. There's no Mr. Trump is not a quitter.
There's no benefit to either of them.
They're going to do it. They have to.
This is our version of the Coliseum. The Christians and the Lions.
So bad. It's all so bad. Don't buy Samsung phones. Don't use Yahoo anything. And the debates. Oh God.
Okay, and then there was one more thing Yahoo did.
Yeah.
That also loses some faith. Now, Yahoo has a checkered past with the federal government.
This is
Remember,
even worse.
Yahoo turned over a couple of Chinese dissidents, right? That was that almost 10 years ago now.
Yeah.
But this is that same issue. You do business in China, you have to adhere to the laws of China, right? Anyway, you could go back and forth on that one. After that, they did fight some national security letters, right? They went to court. They tried to protect user data. They lost. Then they got another one, apparently. The U.S. government, secret order, saying you need to search your email, all the user's email, for some specific information, a signature that we believe belongs to a malefactor. Reuters reported that a couple of weeks ago. The New York Times reported the government was looking for a specific digital signature of a communications method used by a state-sponsored foreign terrorist organization. Hey, they should find that. Yahoo initially said, oh, it was easy. We just modified our spam filter. That's already going through the mail. And we just said, hey, look for this too while you're at it. But then apparently that's not the case. Anonymous sources, and again, you always have to consider the source. Anonymous sources told the New York Times that... actually told Motherboard, I apologize, that it was not spam filtering or child pornography filtering, but the tool was more like a rootkit.
Yep.
And it was discovered by Alex Stamos' internal security testing team during one of their checkups. They thought hackers had put a rootkit on Yahoo until they got a memo from upstairs saying, no, that was us. It's okay. If it was just a slight modification of the spam and child pornography filters, the security team wouldn't have noticed and freaked out, said an ex-Yahoo employee. It definitely contained something that did not look like anything Yahoo Mail would have installed. The back door was installed in a way that endangered all of Yahoo's users.
And supposedly without the knowledge of the actual security team, right?
Right. But this is what the NSA and the police organizations around the country want. They want their own private backdoor. They believe delusionally that nobody else can access it, nobody else will get at it. We just want our ability to just have free reign inside of every place where everybody's having conversations. That's what we want, and we're doing it for the children.
And by the way, since it was in fact Stamos who discovered it was installed on purpose, we know this happened prior to June 2015. It was more than a year ago.
Yep. It was so bad that after this happened, Google, Microsoft, Twitter, Facebook, basically all these major companies came out and said, we're not doing this same sort of thing.
Right.
And
don't worry, we're not doing that.
And, whether or not you want to believe them is one thing, but the fact that all these companies have to come out and acknowledge that, I think, says something about the weight and the seriousness of this. This is even worse to me than the hacking thing. This is just one more reason to, if you have a Yahoo account, to question what the hell are you still using it for, and do you really want it?
Yeah.
Sad, because when Jerry and David created Yahoo, it was the first internet search tool.
Right.
They were internet pioneers, and I remember using Yahoo. I remember just visiting Yahoo and seeing the servers. They were still on premises.
Yeah.
And they said, "Yeah, it's over there. That's the there's the."
Yeah, I remember that.
Wow, that's cool.
Exodus. It was at the Exodus facility.
Yeah.
I was like, "There's Yahoo. Wow.
There's Yahoo. Nice boxes right there."
Not the same Yahoo anymore.
Nope. They should just sell it off for parts and close the doors. It's
as long as we're talking about that.
Well, this is the big thing. I mean, because Yahoo. The reality is that initial Yahoo was doomed in their competition against Google from the beginning, because they were a media company really from the beginning. They were creating a list of links that are on the internet.
It was never a search
Google,
index, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Google was using the links, the very structure of the internet, to create its index, which meant as the web got bigger, Yahoo increasingly didn't work, and as the web got bigger, Google got better. And that was something that they really in the long run could not compete against. The one thing they have is this massive user base. Like to our points about advertising and stuff, it's hard to change consumer behavior. But no, I agree for both of these things. I mean, at a minimum, I object to the fact that they had to install anything like this, but at a minimum, at least do it in the most possible secure way possible,
in the least damaging way, and the most constrained way possible.
Yeah, and frankly, no, I agree with you. I mean, frankly, there is. I hope the message gets out to the general population that you should not be using Yahoo. Period. It's like, and if that ruins their value to Verizon, good. Like they deserve it, and frankly, we need some examples of companies just utterly selling people down the river like this. And I think the upcoming shareholder lawsuits and all sorts of things are going to be very fascinating and deserved.
Yeah. And to a certain extent, Yahoo's entire business is stupid because
and not only that, but your business is stupid.
Exactly. There's no unifying glue for Yahoo. They've acquired 1,000
Yeah.
companies.
It is a mishmash,
and they
yeah.
slap their logo on it, and then you find out about these great things when they close them.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, well, Yahoo
Yeah.
just closed, you know, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? I would have loved using
that,
it.
yeah.
And so there's just really no connection between Tumblr and the fantasy football thing and the
Flickr.
weather and like,
Yeah.
why are these things?
This
all
is
in one
going to
company?
be, we're going to look back at 2016, maybe 2017, and say it was the year Yahoo and Twitter died, and we'll talk about that in a second. But first, I'm hoping. First, ladies and gentlemen, we had a great week, and if you missed any of it, we have created a small movie for you to enjoy. Watch.
Previously on Twit.
At this point, most people are going, I'm done. I don't need that Yahoo Mail account anymore. I don't trust these guys. We thought we'd get you on because you're the only person in the world who seems to know how to delete a Yahoo account.
There is a page, surprise, but I could not find it by searching through Yahoo.
All about Android.
So this is a pair of headphones I picked up in China made by a company called Vinci, as you can see, Vinci, whatever. It's Android. It has sensors so it can detect like whether it's on your head and pause when you remove it and stuff. It streams music from Spotify and from Amazon Music and a bunch of other music services, and it has voice control. But I think it's kind of cool, like that we see Android in devices that are wearable but are not smartwatches.
Right. Triangulation.
Ben Weisner is our guest. He's director of ACLU's Speech, Privacy, and Technology. His claim to fame, principal advisor to Edward Snowden. Do you think the intelligence community is waiting for another San Bernardino to once again launch that effort, or have they understood the need for strong encryption?
I think the intelligence community is really divided on that question. And this is what's so fascinating about it, is that you see people in the military and the NSA who realize that actually we have more to lose than more to gain in a world where encryption is easily breakable by law enforcement.
Twit for justice.
If you missed that interview with Ben Weisner on Monday, watch that, download that. That was just fantastic. Yep. Snowden's legal counsel and the head of the ACLU Speech, Privacy, and Security some project. What's ahead? Well, I can tell you. Actually, I probably shouldn't tell you because we have a whole team of people working on that. Let's just ask Jason Howell. Jason?
Hey, thanks, Leo. Here's a look at just a few of the stories that we're going to be watching in the week ahead. On Monday, October 17th, Tesla is expected to announce a new product. CEO Elon Musk took to Twitter last week to tease the announcement, saying the product will be unexpected by most people. Tesla normally rolls out the red carpet for major product reveals, so this will most likely be something a little less than, say, an actual vehicle announcement. The rumored solar roof, perhaps? An updated autopilot? We'll find out more tomorrow. On Thursday, October 20th, Google will begin to ship its new Pixel devices to those who ordered them after the product announcement earlier this month. This signals the beginning of Google's efforts to go toe-to-toe with competing premium smartphone offerings, with the devices conceptualized from the ground up by the company. Also on the 20th, Amazon's smaller second-generation Echo Dot begins shipping to consumers for $49.99. The Dot has much of the functionality of the full-size Echo, and don't forget that you can buy a 6-pack for the price of 5. That should give you plenty of stocking stuff or awesomeness for the holidays. Megan Maroney and I cover all of this and a whole lot more all week on Tech News Today, each and every weekday at 4 p.m. Pacific. That's a look at the week ahead. Back to you, Leo.
Thank you, Jason Howell. It is earnings week, so we're going to have earnings calls from Apple, Intel, not Yahoo, a lot of companies as well. So there's lots of news coming up this week. I wonder what Elon is announcing.
Can't wait.
They found a way out of the simulation. They've cracked it.
Okay, so the rumor was that Elon and some others are paying physicists to find a way to break through the simulation that Elon's convinced we are all in, that we are in a video game.
That we're in the Matrix, basically.
Yeah, we're in the Matrix. And
I love that so much.
I love it, but you can't prove it one way or the other. And how does it change your life in any significant way? And I don't know.
Or can you?
Well, but if you could pay physicists to break us out, maybe that's what he's going to announce tomorrow. That would be a big announcement.
God, no one is more fun. He's just like, let's go to Mars. Let's make rockets. Let's make electric cars. Let's find out if we're in the Matrix.
Like
this
Elon
is what
to
he
say,
does. This is so
I have a
cool.
red pill and I have a blue pill. And would you like to take one? Make sure, though, you choose wisely.
I don't remember. I don't want to remember nothing. Nothing.
Leo. I like this simulation. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing that would be kind of a relief is that, so when you die, do you wake up and go, well, that was a great game. You want to play again?
That's right.
What do you do? What do you, I mean, are we playing ourselves or is somebody playing us?
Good question. Good question.
And does Elon Musk have the cheat codes?
Well, what he did say is because he believes this, it gives him a remarkable amount of freedom, right? Because he can't, you know, well, if it is a game, just might as well play as hard as you can.
Yeah.
Not worry about what's going to happen.
That'd be a nice perspective to have on the world.
I don't want to wake up and have to do a new map, though. That's not going to be fun. Can I use the same map? I've gotten good at this one, I think.
They've got a better map now, Leo.
Oh, Lord. All right. Twitter. Oh, wait a minute. I'm going to do an ad, then I'll do Twitter. How about that? I was very skeptical, I have to say. And I've tried, you know, kind of enterprise-grade systems like Ubiquiti and, you know, the top-of-the-line routers, multi-$100 routers. And nobody had solved this big problem, which was getting the very simple problem, but fundamental problem of distributing Wi-Fi over my entire home. Yep. And I'd actually put in power line networking and repeaters and all sorts of stuff, a wireless distribution system. And then Eero sent me this. This is the Eero system. And it solves, really, the single router model is dead. Eero is the new way. And you could buy an individual Eero. In fact, if you were in a studio apartment, this would be a great choice for your base unit, like any router. It has Ethernet in, Ethernet out. You could attach that, and it works fine. And I do this to a switch or a hub or a
PlayStation or something.
Yeah, yeah. Well, actually, what I do is I put it on a switch, and then I can have everything be wired to the Eero. But then it also has the Wi-Fi. You fire up the Eero app on your iPhone or your Android device, and you then add another Eero and another Eero, and as many Eeros as you need. Each one distributes it to a larger area. And this is the first Wi-Fi system I found that actually gets to every point in my house without a dead zone, without complaints from Lisa, and that's a big one. The spousal approval factor very high.
Yes.
No more buffering.
That's
no
why
more
they call it
zones.
Wi-Fi.
You know, it's funny. I was just showing Nathan the Eero app on my iPhone. And it said, hey, there's an update. This is one of the other things that Eero does that's awesome. You create an Eero account and it updates automatically. Hey, there's an update. We can wait till later tonight, or would you want to do it now? I said, well, nobody's home, so I just updated all my routers from here.
That's cool.
It's really cool. You can see if you go to your network settings, it does constant bandwidth checks, so you know the status of your network, shows you all the devices on the network currently and previously by name. You can reserve devices. And then Eero does some additional smart stuff. For instance, and I talked to the founder of Eero about this, it looks at the device. It knows, for instance, that that's an Apple TV. And it says, okay, well, we're going to give you QoS on that device. We're going to improve the streaming on that device because you're not going to really need it so much on your Nexus 6P. It's amazing.
That's good.
It has great guest networks. This thing really works. Now, you don't have, and the thing is, it's simple. It's easy. You can give this to an unsophisticated member of your family or friend, and suddenly they're going to have Wi-Fi that works.
But Leo, what about all the exercise I get holding the laptop in the corner of the room where the Wi-Fi is?
I can't help you with that, Mike. I'm sorry. By the way, WPA2 encryption, of course, nothing less. They wouldn't dream of it. It's customer support, and I tested them out on this. I called them and I said, I am trying to set up I have a server I'm trying to set up on my Eero, and I need to port forward. And, you know, I gave them a typical kind of geeky question. They were great. They walked me right through it. They said, did we help? Did that work? And he sat with me maybe an hour on the phone and rebooted through reboots and everything. It is an enterprise-grade Wi-Fi system that really works. We're partnering with Eero to offer you free overnight shipping if you go to Eero.com and use the offer code TWIT. So what you do is you go to EERO.com, buy your Eero system, and then at checkout, just check the box that says overnight shipping and enter the code TWIT, and that'll be zero. EERO.com, offer code TWIT. If you have been suffering, and I know so many people are, with dead spots, with Wi-Fi that just doesn't work, that speeds that fluctuate up and down, this is such a great solution. Eero.com, and don't forget the offer code TWIT for free overnight shipping. Put it down there. I love that Eero thing. Love it. I don't know if look. I should always recuse myself from any conversation about Twitter. I was an early adopter. Got on it first December 2006. Even in the first 6 months, I quit. At the first, I quit because of the confusion between Twit and Twitter. And I remember interviewing Ev Williams, and I said, Ev, why did you name it Twitter? You knew because he'd been on our shows. He said, I didn't think either of us was going anywhere.
Ooh,
I thought both would be small companies, there'd be no conflict.
Double burn.
Well, he went somewhere. Twitter went somewhere. But I always had these mixed feelings, and then of course with the free speech issues, the trolling issues. At the same time, I can't quit you, right? If I hear a rumor that a celebrity has passed away, I don't turn on CNN. You go to Twitter, right? You don't go to Facebook. You go to Twitter.
It's still my favorite social network to use. You know,
I'm not crazy about it. 140 characters makes people talk like they're having a stroke.
This is true.
I think that's a problem. Now, I know they've done some things lately to change that. I also feel like it's disjointed. So you'll be following, everybody's talking about the debate, and then somebody says something about his sandwich. It's like, what? It's like, maybe I'm too old.
Yeah, hashtags never have been the solution to filter conversations that they should have been.
And then also, and this is the thing that's gnawing away at me. I blame Twitter a little bit for what's going on in our country right now, because this sounds terrible, but I think we have a little too much democracy. I was a big believer at the beginning of the internet. This is going to be great. Everybody's going to get a voice, and the bad voices shine the light of day on it, and that will disinfect. And ultimately, what we're going to do is get rid of these elites who control the media, and everybody's going to have a voice. And I was a real utopian, and now I feel like it's a little dystopian.
Well, you've had some great conversations on multiple Twitch shows on this topic.
I know I bang this gong.
But it's important, and this is the moment to talk about it. I think that, to me personally, I think that the solution is somewhat obvious. So people talk about real names versus anonymity. I think you need pseudonymity. I think you basically have to have a real name facing Twitter behind the scenes, and then you can call yourself anything you want. But the point is, you can't create a new account every 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I've had so many arguments in the last 3 months, political arguments, with people with 0 followers or 5 followers and an egg avatar.
You shouldn't be talking to them. Why are you talking to them?
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's people just creating these phony accounts.
What I would say the biggest problem with Twitter is that everybody is equal on Twitter, and every account, however dumb, however few followers, has equal voice with every other account. And so brands especially fall for this, and they see stuff on Twitter and they take it seriously.
Right. Yeah.
It's as if, oh my God, Jane Pauley just said something bad about me. That's a bad choice of person. But you get what I'm saying, that everybody's equal on Twitter, so it's a little too much democracy. Anyway, none of this matters. Let's stipulate.
No, it does matter.
Well, I want to stipulate you could fix this. Now go ahead.
I don't know.
Well, first off, I will push back against any argument that says everyone is equal is a problem, because frankly, the fact that internet makes everyone equal is the entire reason why I've been able to build the career that I've been able to. I get a little irked like that Norwegian editor writing about Facebook demanding special privileges because he's an editor on Facebook. Right. Like that, to me, that's very problematic, and a return to a world where, yes, it was simpler and there was more defined what we saw. There's lots of stuff we didn't see. We didn't see police violence. We didn't see, this sort of.
Wouldn't we have seen all that without Twitter?
Things like that.
The Arab Spring would have happened without Twitter. You cannot say Twitter is true.
I'm just saying. Like, it's really easy. It's always easier to see the problems that have arisen from something than it is to see the benefits, particularly and in general, it's easy to look back at the good old days when you benefited from the good old days, and to not see the millions of people that did not benefit from the good old days.
I think if there's no Twitter, there's no Donald Trump.
But here's the problem. It's not that everybody is equal, it's that everybody is not equal. So you, Leo Laporte, everybody knows where you work, what you do, what your thoughts are, what your laptop is, what you're this, who your family, all that stuff they know all about. And then some anonymous creep will come along and get into this war with you, and you two are not equal. They have a huge advantage. They might have 20 fake accounts. Right. So it's 20 against 1.
I should apologize because, you know, we've had this conversation so many times. There's no point in belaboring this. I will stipulate Twitter's fixable. The issue today is, will anybody buy Twitter? And if nobody buys Twitter, what will happen to Twitter? Twitter announced it was for sale. It had some suitors, all of whom, every one of whom has said, yeah, never mind. For reasons I think this conversation illustrates. So now what?
There's no place for real-time-ish conversations to happen online like Twitter. Right. There's nothing else like it, right? And so you know, trolling issues aside, which are persistent,
but I'll stipulate. Let's say it's fixable. Why would Salesforce, Apple, Google, and Disney all turn their back on?
Well, I mean, if it's fixable, then why hasn't Twitter figured it out in the first place, right? I mean, this has been
because it's a dysfunctional management, and it always has been.
You think well, there's lots of that. I mean, to Mike's point, Mike's point is exactly right. The fastest, easiest way to fix this is to figure out a way that one person can only create one account. Obviously, there will always be holes in that, but Twitter doesn't do anything to restrict that. And why don't they do anything to restrict that? Well, they could be stupid, or it could be that the single most important number driving their stock is the number of monthly active users.
Well, and also Twitter was founded as the free speech wing of the free speech party, quote unquote. So there's a historical genetic thing in Twitter that we are not, and by the way, look at 4chan and look at Reddit as two other companies with the same attitude who are suffering as well.
Yeah, but you know, I think for you know, Google, for Apple, for Disney, for Salesforce, I think the question is, okay, what is Twitter and how does it fit into our business? And Twitter, interestingly enough, like Yahoo, has never been able to really articulate what it's about, and some of the frustration that comes with it, I think, is a reflection of us as people who use it. Is we all use it for different ways, right? Trump uses it for his thing. Other people use it to find music. Other people use it to help organize like the Black Lives Matter movement. Other people use it to talk about sports and fashion or whatever. So there's all these different things that people are using it for, but there's no clear, you know, like what is it? Is it where you go for news? Is it where you go to talk to your friends? Is it where you go to like what is it? Right?
Ask what the phone system does, or you know, I mean, what is the internet in general? It could be all of the above. I don't have a problem with it being many things to
but I think it's hard for these other companies to figure out how it fits in and what to do with it.
Well, who is somebody going to buy it?
Well, first of all, before we get to who might buy it, let's talk about who's not buying it and why. I think each of these companies has a completely different reason. I mean, for example, some have talked about Bloomberg buying it. This is a private company. They could probably use the data, they say. I'm not sure.
Well, I think any company that's looking at it is looking at the data more than anything else, right?
But that's a completely whack business for them, and it's really expensive for Bloomberg. So you look at Google. Google doesn't really need the data. And
don't they, though?
I don't think they do. They have such superior data. The problem with Twitter
is it's not just that Twitter already gives them all the data.
The number of people who are identifiable, but the number of people who are identifiable that where, okay, this is Leo Laporte. This is the same Leo Laporte that has this YouTube account. That's the same person. It's a tiny number of people on Twitter. There's so much anonymity.
Yeah, Twitter has 300 million monthly active users, of which no more than half, probably significantly less than half, are not spammers.
Right.
So let's say 100 million real active users. That's a small number compared to $1.5 billion Facebook.
Pinterest has more right now.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I think we ran a story on that last week.
Instagram has 3 times that number.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a completely out of left field business for Salesforce. Disney doesn't want to be associated with all the vitriol and profanity and pornography and all that stuff. Apple doesn't really want to be in the social networking business. Nope. And so each of these companies that has the money has a different reason for not wanting it. So I really buy into the inevitability that some no-name financial company nobody's heard of is going to buy it, strip it for parts, turn it into nothing, and it'll be the end of Twitter.
I like this article from John Hempton. He's a hedge fund guy at Bronte Capital. He says, you're right, it'll be an investment company, but the reason it'll be an investment company is because in order to make Twitter work, they have $2 billion revenue. You've got to cut a significant amount of the costs.
Well,
and it's going to be so brutal,
they're going to cut
so
a ton
ugly,
of staff.
that no company with a public face really wants to buy it. So it's going to be some investment company like Carl Icahn or somebody who doesn't care what you think. He says literally a Wall Street bastard.
Yep.
And that person can do the job needed to turn Twitter into something useful, not to shut it down, not even sell it off for parts, but just to clean it up and make it profitable. Where are the bastards
when you need one? You know what I'm saying?
Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, a lot of folks, you know, that I've spoken to and you know, talked to on some of these sorts of things say that there's too many people over there who don't know what they're doing, and the staff's too big, and it's kind of a bloated company.
Everybody talks about how there's mismanagement, but I think the best example of that is that their costs have gone way, way, way up, and their losses have remained constant. So no matter how much, and the revenue's gone way up too. Twitter is a company that they could have continued to run on a shoestring budget, and it would still be 95% as good as it is now, but they've had Facebook envy. Right. Yeah. Everybody's telling them, you got to be Facebook, you're a public company, you got to go after the money, you have to be like Facebook. Yep. And so they've twisted it and changed it.
Bronte says if you can't have 40% operating margin, then you're inadequately brutal. Personally, I think 50% is possible. What about you, Ben? What do you think? You follow this stuff very closely, and you're good in the financial markets. You think that's what makes sense?
I do. The problem for Twitter is it goes back to horrible management, and that horrible management is impactful in two ways. So first off, the product stagnated and did not improve in any meaningful way for like 4 years. And the problem is the initial Twitter concept was so good. It got a huge number of users, and they never had to go through the trouble of figuring out what made Twitter compelling and selling that to other people. And so right now, it's this sort of like unfinished rough product that does a ton of different things, and it's not focused on really any of them and doing them very well. The second problem with mismanagement, though, is by virtue of the mismanagement, by not figuring out the product and not building a business, they compensated by raising an absolute epic ton of venture capital. Twitter raised $760 million worth of venture capital, which is way more than Facebook raised for a much smaller business that frankly doesn't do very much. And the reason was they were too busy fighting with each other to actually build a business. And so the problem is venture capital makes a ton of sense for social network. It's really the only way to build this sort of product or media company, whatever you want to call Twitter. It's the only reason to build this sort of company, because you need all the costs are up front, and you want to generate a scale engine on both sides, on the user side where the user generated content, and on the advertising side where you want to build sort of a self-serving sort of business that scales along with the users. The problem is that the user growth capped out, and they never got the scale advertising business model off the ground. Right now, the vast majority of their advertising is selling it directly. So you have this company that, the way I analogized it in another podcast was, it's like your kids, they get a little chubby before they grow tall. Twitter got really, really, really chubby, and they never grew tall. And so they have this massive cost structure. They have this huge bloated company where they could be a very nice $5 billion company with their current revenue model, maybe even higher. But I completely agree with John Hempton. I think it was a very astute article. It was very well put that right now, the company, like, we still talk about Twitter in this ridiculous way. Oh, Twitter has so much potential. Oh, imagine what they could do with this, imagine that. They're 10 years old. Like, the time to talk about them and their potential is past. They are what they are. And I increasingly agree that the appropriate route is to embrace that. Are they going to lose all their engineers? Going to lose all their talent? Yes, they are. But unfortunately, they had their chance. It's passed, and hopefully they can build something about what's there. And to your point, I think Hampton's point is well made. They will be a much more attractive acquisition target once that process is over. Yes, they might die. The surgery might kill the patient. But at this point, to buy Twitter now it would be foolhardy. Why would you want this company? The only one that makes a possible passable sense is Google, just because they don't have any sort of feed product on mobile for all the business model reasons I talked about before. But the fact is, Twitter inventories on DoubleClick, and they get the fire hose of data because Twitter made this deal, this desperate deal, that Google would save them, and now Google has everything they need from Twitter without having to have paid a dime for it. So yeah, I'm a pessimist as well.
I also hate the fact that every Silicon Valley company has to make $1 trillion of profit a year, otherwise they're nothing. Yeah. Why can't Twitter just have 100,000 active users, grow slow, be this incredibly valuable thing, make
the
a
Google
small
Plus
profit
model?
Yeah, well, I don't know that Google Plus is actually profitable for Google. But
that's the problem with all the venture capital that they raise, and that's what goes back to management. Exactly. They put themselves in weight.
They
The
can't
only
tread
way
water
out
at
of
this
their
point.
financial-
Right. Yeah.
the only way out of their predicament was to grow hugely, and now they're paying out all these stock options. This is a ridiculous number of stock options to keep talent there, and it's only deepening the hole that they're in. The only way out for Twitter as it's constructed is to dramatically increase their user base, and that's not happening. We've seen
going the other way.
I wrote this. I wrote this in their IPO in 2013 that the company was in big trouble because their user base, because they had this user growing problem, and especially as advertising gets more and more concentrated, and they never built a scalable advertising model. Like, I mean, this has been apparent for years that this was a problem. I think what's increasingly apparent now is just how toxic an asset this would be and why no one would want to buy them. And they're stuck in this paradox right now. The value of Twitter is almost assuredly much less than its current market cap. The problem is its current market cap is inflated because people hope someone will buy them, but they won't be bought until the price goes down. So they're stuck in this paradox where they will only be bought once everyone gives up on the prospect of them being bought. The only problem is that might only happen when they die, and that would be unfortunate.
Well, I think we're getting close to that.
Yeah, it's happening now.
The stock price has been tumbling.
We're really going to be missing something, though.
I agree.
once
I
Twitter
agree.
goes
It's a
away.
loss.
If it goes away. I hope it doesn't go away.
I hope it doesn't. And this is why it's so frustrating, because there's so much value there. It's an incredibly value piece of infrastructure that's really not duplicated anywhere on the internet. It's highly differentiated. And so I do hope it goes through this process, just because if it could come out either a much leaner company, as Mike said, they're generating $2.2 billion in revenue, and they have their gross profit is $1.5 billion. Like, they have a workable model here. The problem is their G&A and their compensation prices are so out of whack with the reality of the business.
Can they get out of
just
those, or are they committed at this point? I mean, aren't they contractually
like
committed
student
to these
loans.
people?
Yeah, well, I mean that's the big question around acquisition and lots of people being laid off and things of that nature. I mean, that's why I think there's increasing sort of sense that that's the only way out for them, because they have to get out of this.
You sound sad. Don't be sad.
I'm sad too.
so sad.
Here's why it's sad. Here's exactly why it's sad. We all want to embrace and invest our time in a social network that we love, where we develop connections and friends and so on. And these keep getting ripped out from under us as people scatter off to these little social networks. And now, where do you go?
I wonder if there isn't a backlash against social in general.
I think there might be.
Yeah, maybe social isn't really.
I think maybe like a publicly
healthy
facing social thing. I think a lot of the trend I think we're seeing is more private stuff like the
maybe let's just go to a
Snapchats
bar and have a drink and forget this internet.
It doesn't scale though, Leo.
It scales plenty. You don't need more than 10 friends, do you?
Well, then you have a chain of bars or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Franchise.
Well, again, the evidence of the way people actually spend their time is not that social is going anywhere. It's that it's deepening. And I certainly share concerns about the societal impact. Frankly, I think Facebook is the bigger issue, not Twitter.
Right.
And the way that the feed gets customized to you.
Just because we're addicted to it doesn't mean it's good for us.
Amen to that.
Well, but just because it's a dramatic shift in the way the world works does also not mean it's a bad thing. Again, I think it's really easy to, particularly for people in media and in journalism who've had their business models decimated by the internet, it's really easy to pin the blame on whoever is winning now.
Right.
And the fact of the matter is the world is significantly different. A major theme for me writing in general is that, the internet is of a level of the Industrial Revolution where everything about society is going to change. Our political institutions are going to need to change. The way our media is going to change. The way people work is going to change. All these things are going to change. And
they still are.
One, it's going to be really hard. It's going to be really painful. And to be clear, this is very different from tech. This is very different from the first tech 1.0, which was, like ERP solutions and all that stuff, which made business way more efficient, but didn't change the way business worked. The way business works is fundamentally changing, and that's by definition going to entail a lot of pain and a lot of upheaval. But I don't want to go back to the Middle Ages before the Industrial Revolution, but it's hard. And my concern is not that we stuff a genie back in the box, or that we close Pandora's box, or however many metaphors I can mix in one sentence. The question is, what's our level of awareness of the reality of this change, and how quickly can we get our society and our institutions in a way to handle this change, and it's not going to stop. Like, it is what it is. And I think once we accept that and can figure out a way forward, we'll be in a healthier place, albeit still a very challenging one.
Well, this just in on Twitter. Elon Musk tweets, moving the Tesla announcement to Wednesday. Needs a few more days of refinement. By the way, you might note that Elon has 5.6 million followers and files 39 people.
And where is he going to make that announcement once Twitter dies?
Right.
You know?
Yeah, right.
And
that's a very good point.
But that's the beauty of Twitter. It's a place where people broadcast and where anybody can potentially. So if somebody with 10 followers tweets something massive, it snowballs and is retweeted and becomes this. And it's a place where you can go reliably to get the big news.
Yeah.
And the real-time news. Once
Ironically,
it's gone,
not on the Moments tab.
No.
Twitter's own big news tab doesn't work.
No. I don't think Twitter's ultimately going to die. I think something's going to happen. It's probably going to be like what we're talking about, where some, maybe possibly terrible, activist investor group takes it over, strips it away. But
what's terrible about an activist group that actually builds a viable business out of Twitter? I mean,
if they could, it could be great. There are just lots of terrible ones that don't, right? That strip them.
A lot of companies deserve to die.
And that's also true. That's also
and as somebody pointed out in the chat room, we don't lament Netscape Navigator anymore either. I mean, this is the nature
Speak for
of
yourself.
This is the nature of
or MySpace,
the beast. Stuff moves on. Stuff moves on. We're going to move on.
You know what? Twitter. I can't move on from Twitter. It's impossible.
Don't move on. Keep talking, Ben.
I swore off of writing about Twitter for Shekari because
I should too. Because notice how.
But you can't. You can't stay away. You can't stay away. I think Twitter. I think I'm an optimist in this. I think Twitter is so unique and offers such unique value that I do think, I just decried this phrasing, but I do think there is a business here, and I think it's sticky enough that it will survive the surgery. But I do think the surgery needs to happen for all.
But what's difficult is to figure out who should do the surgery and what the surgery should be. We don't even know why the patient is sick.
And don't use a chainsaw, please.
Well, maybe it's going to take a chainsaw. I mean, I don't know. And I think one of the reasons companies have walked away from Twitter is they're not really sure what surgery needs to be done. We all see value.
Right.
We all see problems. And I don't know what the solution is.
Crowdfund a takeover by the journalists of the world.
Yeah.
Journalists of the world unite.
Interesting.
And we've seen so many.
You want to talk about crappy market caps.
We've seen so many people try to duplicate Twitter with no success. It's really it's a fascinating phenomenon.
Any product with user-generated content or any sort of network effect has to be free. Like, there is no other.
Right.
However they make money, it has to be free for the user. It's not viable otherwise. Right. The single most important feature of any network is, do I have friends or family using it, or professional context, or whatever it might be.
One of the disappointing things is I feel like they're actually onto something with live video, with that kind of conversation happening underneath it. I mean, hey, I know Mark Zuckerberg says he wants Facebook to be video centric and all that stuff, but
well, it is. My Facebook feed is live video all the time.
But the conversations that happen on Facebook underneath your feed aren't close to what you get when you see it on Twitter or you see it on Periscope. I mean, they really do something different, and it might be because Facebook hides so much behind their login. Their free paywall or whatever, but there is no wall like that for Twitter. You can see what's going on even if you don't take part. And with the way streaming is booming right now, there's something special that's happening here. I hope that they figure it out before.
Will you watch election night? Will you watch the Bloomberg feed on Twitter?
I will.
You think that's the place to be?
I do.
I think I will. I know I'm doing it for sports now, and I've been doing it for the elections.
I'm watching the Oscars, the Super Bowl, and all that kind of the debates. All is for me.
Well, I always have
event.
Twitter running with the TV on,
but I'm
you're
tweeting
saying
like a maniac too.
But you're saying Twitter's strategy of putting live video on the feed means you could just watch, just sit on Twitter.
Yeah, and they have like their Apple TV app is pretty clever, and I think
Does anybody use that? That seems weird to me to watch the app, have the Apple TV app running.
I kind of like it.
The problem is the currently, if you watch video on the app, it just shows random tweets. It doesn't show your Twitter stream, which I guess makes sense in that the goal is to reach people who don't have their own.
If it
stream.
were properly curated, that could be awesome. Is it how is it curated?
It's not.
Well, the problem with Twitter's curation has always been bad, and it's always been focused on brands and famous people, which is you get boring brandy type tweets. Yeah. Whereas the real value of Twitter is the little more, how shall we say, spicier tweets that can accompany a sporting event or something like that, and the jokes that rise up.
Could you make a bot that would curate Twitter appropriately? Could you do sentiment analysis or some sort of grading of tweets that could?
And how is Twitter going to hire those people?
Yeah, because they don't have stock that anybody wants.
Right.
Because they love Twitter.
That's why Google should buy it.
Open source it. I mean, people don't get paid to do open source projects.
Yeah.
And there's some amazing stuff being made there. I don't know. It seems like there's a solution.
There's got to be something somewhere.
All right, let's take a break. We'll come back. Lots more to talk about, but only about a minute more in the show. We're really running out of time. We got to make these shows with Ben and Mike and Nathan 4 hours long. Can we do that?
Yes.
Okay. Mike Elgin is here. He's our digital nomad, becomingnomad.com and elgin.com. It's so nice to have you in the studio.
Great to be here.
He has devoured.
Nice place you got here, Leo.
It's kind of, it's similar. Does it feel familiar?
A little bit.
It's weird. It's different, but it's the same. It's weird that way.
Yeah.
Nathan Olivares-Giles from the Wall Street Journal and a Dodger lover. Beautiful.
As long as they're in LA, they're my team.
It's a beautiful thing, man.
I love it.
Beautiful thing. I like your Niners hat, sir. Thank you for wearing that. Why?
Got to represent.
This used to be a Niners mug. Somebody has peeled the Niners badge off my mug.
Some
Dodger fan. Some Dodger fan was in here.
Wait, hey, I got nothing to get.
Nothing. I didn't do
check his
nothing.
fingernails.
No, you know what it is, and I know because you admitted it. It's a Raiders fan. That's who would do that. They got no conscience. No conscience. Also with us, always great to have him from stratechery.com, Ben Thompson. And the sun is now out fully in Taipei and shining in his window. It's nice to have you. Boy, you guys are always so good, so salient, so pithy, so wise. I appreciate that. Our show today brought to you by my dinner, Blue Apron. Blue Apron, they said their mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone while supporting a more sustainable food system, setting the highest standards for ingredients and building a community of home chefs, and they do such a good job. Man, I love it when I get home and that Blue Apron box is on the porch there, and I know inside I've got 3 different meals with all the ingredients I need, a step-by-step recipe card, easy to follow, everything I need to make an amazing meal, something I would never have dreamed of making before in 40 minutes or less. And by the way, and I want to really nip this in the bud, sometimes I think people look at this and say, well, that's got to cost you. It's 60% more expensive to shop at a store than to use Blue Apron because there's no brick or mortar, there's no clerks. It's much easier for them to do this. You save money. You're going to spend under $10 per person for healthy home-cooked meals with the best ingredients, sustainably sourced seafood, humanely raised beef. Chickens are free-range. The pork is raised naturally. Regenerative farming practices. And it's unusual ingredients, stuff you may not have had before. When you get salmon, wild-caught Alaskan salmon. When you get tomatoes, heirloom tomatoes. Blue Apron brings you the best. Research shows Blue Apron families cook together nearly 3 times as often. They have 2 kinds of plans. They plan for a couple. Great for date night. Oh, what a way to win somebody's heart. But also family plans, which have a little bit more kid-friendly ingredients. And they're great. It's so much fun to cook with the kids and get them excited about cooking. New recipes created every week by Blue Apron's culinary team, and they will not repeat for a year. So you're going to have new stuff to try all the time, like crispy chicken Milanese with warm Brussels sprouts, celery, and potato salad. I hate doing these ads at dinner time. I am dying here. Thai green curry chicken and squash with yu choy. Don't know what that is, but I could tell you it's going to be great. I think it's a kind of bok choy. Jasmine rice and cashews. Roasted pork steamed buns with black garlic mayonnaise and spicy cabbage slaw. Seared salmon and fall vegetable hash with apple brown butter dressing. And by the way, we don't talk about this, and we should, if you're cooking for yourself, if you're cooking a meal for one person, make that meal, and now you've got dinner tomorrow, and that's great. You're going to love this. It fills the house with beautiful aromas. Oh, your first 3 meals are free, by the way, with free shipping to most of the continental United States if you go to blueapron.com/twit. blueapron.com/twit. Visit the website, see how it works, and pick your first 3 meals. You will love it. blueapron.com/twit. Okay, we talked about Twitter. We talked about Yahoo. This is depressing. Let's talk. What can we talked about Facebook.
Talked about Samsung's
exploding phones. What's the good news in tech? Google fact check. I think this is Google using its power for good, not evil.
Yes, yes.
Very interesting.
One of the things Twitter and others have done, and the internet has done, is made it possible to spread disinformation as easily, as quickly as information. And when it's spread at a rapid pace, it's almost so fast that you believe it. So I think what Google's doing, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear what you think. You wrote the article on this, Nathan.
Yeah.
They're going to add a fact check label to search results.
Yeah, basically in Google News now for listings to news stories.
Oh, it's just in news.
Just in news so far. You know, this is the sort of thing that could bleed over.
News makes better sense, though.
Yeah, but basically there are more than 100 websites that they've identified that are dedicated to fact checking.
Wow, there's PolitiFact, I know.
PolitiFact, Full Fact. They have a lot of others. There's actually
I guess you could include Snopes in that list too.
Oh, I would absolutely include
definitely.
Snopes. Yeah.
So there's been this
more
kind of
than 100.
rise the last few years of these websites that are dedicated to this. Not to mention the sort of stuff that the Wall Street Journal does, you know, the Washington Post, the New York Times, everybody's NPR does great fact checking during
this
debates.
is difficult though for news outlets to do, especially when candidates are saying, well, the media is manipulating this election. You can't believe what they say. And I think people believe that.
They do.
So it's hard to find objective information.
Well, I've discovered in arguing with politically minded trolls on Twitter.
By the way, this is Mike's article about the same thing.
This is my and what I found is that certain, I'm not going to get political here, too political, but certain political groups have pre-inoculated their idiotic users, followers, whatever you want to call it, against fact-checking itself.
Right.
Yeah.
You
can't trust the fact-checkers.
The fact-checking sites are just a smokescreen for the powers that be, et cetera, et cetera.
The Clintonistas.
Exactly. And so that's a real problem. But I think that my message to the world is, no, most of these fact-checking sites are very good, that the politicians have learned to speak in a way that's fact-check proof. So, for example, in my article, I give a couple of examples, but essentially speaking vaguely and categorically instead of specifically enables them to have nothing to fact check. It's like quicksand.
Yeah. Definitely.
I would like to say one thing on this. The different fact checking sites do different things. So the political ones like PolitiFact, factcheck.org, and so on are great for politics. There are ones for, you know, urban legends and so on, and also politics like Snopes, about.com, and so on. Hoax Slayer is a good one. But there's one that's for tech mostly, and it's very good. It's called Emergent. If you can throw that on the screen, it's called Emergent. Yeah, it's called emergent.info. Is the
EMERGENT.
That's right. And they have this. You see, if it's green, it's true. If it's red, it's not true. And if it's white, it's not clear if it's true or not.
Verified, yeah.
And
this is good. I'm going to add this to my.
Isn't this great? So it's a they call it a real-time rumor tracker, but again, it's very heavily, spun toward technology, and it's just a fantastic resource. Where they just get to the bottom of it. They explain. They talk about the originating source. It's tagged, so you can search by tags or keywords and so on. And it's just a great way to separate the BS from the truth.
Yeah, it's, you know, Google doing this and labeling
it's emergent.info, by the way. Just
emergent.info.
A little hard to find
on Google News is kind of a responsible thing to do. I mean, you know, because like you said, there are those that are known for doing legit stuff, and Google is taking a nonpartisan approach on this, and that matters. It's basically just calling it out and saying, hey, this is someone that's verified, someone that's legit, that has a history of doing this right. And, you know, if you don't believe the media, then you probably don't believe Google's little tags either. So this might not be for you. And that's, I guess, okay.
But again, there are forces out there that want that are in opposition to actual facts and opposition to actual reality, and they want to convince everybody that facts there's no such thing as facts, and there's only opinion or bias or whatever, and that's simply not true. There, in fact, are facts. Yeah, facts exist, and so we need to. And here's my general tip, which I think really resonated with a lot of my readers. Instead of using fact-checking sites as places where you go and look up things that people are disagreeing with, use them like they're publications. Use them like they're blogs. Go to them preemptively and get the truth before you get the lies, and just browse them. They're actually, the way that they tend to format content is actually a very readable way to get the news, to get the information that's out there, and follow their Twitter accounts, follow their social media accounts, and they tend to tweet out or send out what they've concluded, and you can just see it go by, and you're like, oh, okay, so that's not true. And then when you actually see the falsehood later on, you already know, oh, that's not true. Yeah. And so it's a really powerful thing. The internet has made it super easy to spread falsehoods, but they've also made it easy to identify what's true and what's false, and we should all be active in figuring that out.
This really, to me, isn't a new problem. I mean, this has been, an issue as long as there's been in media, as long as there's been politicians.
At the speed of light now.
They move quicker now,
and they've proliferated in a way that's harder and harder to know what's right.
But I think ultimately, kind of on talking on some of the things that Ben brought up with Twitter is. There are more people engaging in these conversations than ever before. The business models for news outlets and journalist organizations and things like that have been hurt incredibly by the internet, but more people are reading the work than ever before that we do. And I think that's ultimately a good thing. Now, we do have some folks maybe who are in certain camps, who might want to believe they're political heroes who say that all media is bad and there are no facts and there is no truth. But I think that most people know that that's BS. And I think that just as before the internet, if a responsible consumer of news, of a responsible person who just wants to learn about the world around them, is going to look to more than one newspaper, is going to look to more than one news website, is going to look to more than one fact-checking website, is going to constantly be challenging what they know to be true, and to read more than one book and all that stuff. So it's the same sort of problem. It moves quicker. I think sometimes it feels amplified and more emotional because it's being thrown in our face every day. Every time we get on Facebook and Twitter, every time we turn on cable news or look at the homepage of any news website, it feels bad. I think it feels a little heightened right now because it's an election year, but I think there's something good underneath all of this in the fact that we're all participating in these conversations in maybe a larger and more public way than ever before, and I think more young people and communities that maybe hadn't been included in some of these conversations before are getting included nowadays. So that's also something that is a threat to a lot of the stakeholders and old power structures and all those things. So ultimately, I think this is going to be good, but I'm glad that Google is making this move.
Me too.
Unfortunately, we got to wrap it up, but I'm going to give you guys, if anybody has a story that we didn't cover, that
I just wanted to add one thing.
Please, Ben, go ahead.
I thought Nathan made a really important point that whether how effective this is going to be, I question. It's just how effective it will ultimately turn out.
People believe the facts they want to believe.
Well, no, it's more how does it get in front of them? You have to actually search for the question in ad issue, and then there will be a label in the search results. And I guess the thing I would take from here is I think Google does deserve a lot of praise for here, because the real company that needs to make a move here is Facebook.
Amen.
And
and in fact, Facebook's almost doing the opposite with their trending stories.
And
this is not a fact. But it's trending.
And Facebook will tailor your news feed depending on what you're most likely to engage with, which means if you share and interact with the more liberal stuff, they'll show you more of that, and conservative, vice versa.
You can counter that, though. I made a point of following every presidential candidate, including all the Republican candidates on my Facebook. So I do see Donald Trump's tweets.
But no one else does that.
Really?
I mean,
very few do.
And I think your point about the trending stories and Facebook's response to accusations of bias was to fire the entire team. It's preposterous, and it's frankly. It's not taking seriously their role in society, and there's no indications that they care or that they understand that. And so, by all means, let's praise Google to the skies. and by implication, let's shame Facebook, because they're Facebook's. Yes, this whole thing that Facebook's a media company is dumb. They're not a media company. They are like, the reason why they are valuable is they are a platform and they live on user-generated content. But at the same time, their role and their impact on society cannot be denied. And their refusal to take that seriously and to put their head in the sand and pretend that they will fix it with an algorithm is, in the long run, I think it's going to be bad for Facebook, because there's going to be a backlash. Eventually, I've been denying your points, Leo, about a backlash, but there will be one. And the concern for Facebook, we saw what happened with that picture, in Norway. Like, at some point, the government's going to get involved, and that's not going to be good for Facebook's business. And they need to take it seriously. And so I would praise Google with the clear undercurrent that's not no longer implicit, it's very explicit, that what a welcome counter to what we're seeing from kind of the real news distribution source.
I have to say, now that I'm looking at Facebook's trending stories, I think they've solved this problem by eliminating news entirely.
Yeah.
And just covering, like, well, stuff like this. So
there's fake stories, and then there's real stories about fake things.
There you go. There is something fake here, but it's not the story.
No.
Okay. Anything we missed? Boy, what a great! I think that's a great way to end, and I appreciate everybody for being here. Ben Thompson for Stratechery. I know Ben has his Bully Pulpit. You've got the Exponent Podcast. You've got stratechery.com. But I am thrilled that you spend some time with us once in a while, because I love your insights. Thank you for being here.
Well, glad to be here, and sorry again for whatever happened last week.
No, it wasn't your fault. I don't blame you. No need to apologize.
It might have been my fault. I actually haven't got
even if it was your fault, it wasn't your fault. I don't blame you at all. We also thank Mike Elgin, because whenever you're in town, life is better, and there's more lattes. Did you drink both of those?
I drank both of them,
Holy
Leo.
cow.
You saw me sprinting and scampering away to the bathroom.
You ain't sleeping tonight, buddy boy.
No.
I only got like halfway through mine.
I'll sleep next week.
The pumpkin spice is strong in this one.
Yes.
We also, I'm thrilled as always to have Nathan Oliver as Giles. Now that I gave him my Mac Pro, he has to show up anytime I ask him to.
Actually, there's a stickers app that my colleague Joanna Stern and I created. I think it's called Pupmoji.
What?
Yeah, it was great.
I got it. Wait a minute. This is for messages? Apple's messages?
Yeah, Apple's messages.
What's it called?
It's called Pupmoji.
Now, you drew the cartoons of her dog.
I drew the cartoons of her dog. She put in a column about how easy it is to make a iMessage app. And I drew them on an iPad Pro, but I finished them on the Mac Pro you gave me.
See, I'm already gaining the benefit of that.
It's a free app. We're not going to charge for it because it was, for a new story. There's only a couple. We want to add more. But yeah, this is a direct result of that. So thanks.
Moji. Well, all right. So I'm going to go to messages, hit the A, hit the 4 little dots. I'm going to go to the store with the plus sign.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to search for, there's no search. Oh, yeah, there it is.
Right there. Yeah.
P-U-P-M-O-J-I.
Yeah, not to shamelessly plug something.
And this is Joanna's. Oh.
Yeah, so Joanna coded it. It's really simple.
She coded it?
If you have Xcode,
I'm impressed.
It's basically just templates. It's not hard to do at all. But
I'm impressed.
Yeah, I basically drew those on an iPad Pro, then using Adobe's cloud. Brought it up on the Adobe Illustrator app on the Mac Pro and finished them there.
Let me find it here. Now I have way too many stickers.
Yeah.
Oh.
I bought a beautiful Dell display to go with it. Real nice.
Oh, let's send these all to Lisa, because she loves dogs. Whoops, is that a...
That is. I drew a cartoon poop emoji next to the dog looking guilty. It was just...
and now I've sent it to my wife, so... Wait.
It's a dog.
What could possibly go wrong? I'm not going to publish her response.
Anyways.
She says, stop texting me.
I just brought it up because I want you to know I appreciate it. I'm using it. And I always enjoy being on the show.
Pupmoji.
So
you see, it's like you cast your bread upon the water and you get poop emojis back.
There you go.
We thank you all for being here. Great studio audience. Thank you for being here today. If you want to be in the studio audience, just email tickets@twit.tv. We'd be glad to have you here. And if you can't, you can always watch the live stream. We do it 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 2200 UTC on Sundays. You can also be in the chat room at irc.twit.tv. We love having you in the chat room. Now, if none of that is possible, don't worry, because we always make on-demand audio and video of every show available on our website, twit.tv, and wherever you subscribe to podcasts. And the good news is there are more and more ways to get that. So whether it's iTunes or Google Music or Stitcher or Slacker or your podcast app on your favorite device, make sure you subscribe to Twit because you don't want to miss a minute. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can. Bye-bye. Yay.